Good evening, Dr. Moore. You're unmuted.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Moore, you've been promoted to panelist. You should have a pop-up on your screen. All right, she's good.
Thank you.
Start. We'll call this meeting to order. The Orange County Board of Education pledges to its citizens to conduct its business in a courteous and productive manner, showing respect for fellow board members, staff, and citizens. The board asks its citizens to conduct themselves in the same courtesy towards both school personnel and each other. As per board policy, Robert's Rule of Order will be used to conduct meetings. A moment of silence will be observed before each meeting. In addition to the moment of silence, we will be reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. The board asks that you check your cell phones and other electronic devices to be certain they are either turned off or on vibrate to avoid interrupting the meeting. Right. Next, we will have the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we'll take a moment for silence. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. We'll start off with recognitions. Dr. Felder.
Well, thank you, and good evening, Chair Atherton, Vice Chair Purcell, to the entire board, to our students, our staff, our families, and community. Tonight, we are so excited to celebrate a number of Orange County Schools students and staff, beginning with Hillsborough Elementary School. So while reopening of our traditional schools is right around the corner, August 22nd for staff, August 29th for students. Tonight, we want to recognize Hillsborough Elementary School, our one and only year-round school, which reopened a few weeks ago. So on July 14th, Hillsborough Elementary School welcomed 425 very happy and smiling students in grades K through 5. By all indicators, they are off to a wonderful beginning. So congratulations to Principal Kreider, Assistant Principal Naj, to the staff, students, and families of Hillsborough Elementary School on what will certainly be another successful academic school year. And you can see some of the smiling faces in the slides projected there. All right, more to celebrate. And so tonight, we also want to celebrate Dr. Gwen Roulhac, principal of Gravelly Hill Middle School, who recently completed this Distinguished Leadership in Practice program, which is a year-long leadership development program for practicing school principals from all regions of the state. The program is designed and provided by the North Carolina Principals and Assistant Principals Association, and is sponsored by the North Carolina Alliance for School Leadership Development. This unique cohort-based program is designed to limit principals' time away from their schools, so she will continue to do her principaling, by allowing them to attend face-to-face sessions once every other month while accessing online assignments, materials, and coaching in between the face-to-face sessions. So principals in this program engage in a series of the year-long experience that are designed to build the capacity of their schools and their own capacity as distinguished school leaders. So a very special congratulations to Dr. Roulhac, who is joining us this evening on this achievement. Dr. Roulhac, did you have any remarks?
Members of the board, thank you so much for this opportunity to be recognized. Dr. Felder, thank you for those wonderful remarks. It was a phenomenal program. I would like to say that on the day of graduation, I didn't go, but that was because I had members of the board in my building helping us recognize our teachers and celebrate our teachers. And so one of the things that I most loved about the program is its focus on how, as leaders, we are really there for the staff, for the students. It helped me think more about strategic leadership. And I'm just very grateful to have been a part of the program. So again, thank you, Dr. Felder, for your support, and thank you, board, for your support as well.
Absolutely.
Congratulations. And there's more. And so tonight we also want to celebrate Tenisha Williamson. Miss Williamson is the assistant principal at Orange High School, and she's being recognized not once, but twice tonight. First, she was selected to participate in the 2022-2023 Future Ready Leadership Program. Future Ready Leadership is a leadership development program for practicing assistant principals. The program provided by the North Carolina Principals and Assistant Principals Association. Her cohort is scheduled to launch this fall. Secondly, last week we were informed that Ms. Williamson was named the Equal Opportunity Schools Equity Champion. For the second year, Orange County Schools is partnering with Equal Opportunity Schools to ensure more students, especially underrepresented students of color and low-income students, have equitable access and are able to be successful in the most academically intense high school courses and programs. Ms. Williamson is being recognized by the Equal Opportunity Schools for leading this work with excellence at Orange High School, where more students have enrolled in rigorous coursework this fall than in previous years. So congratulations to Ms. Williamson on both of these achievements, and she's joining us tonight. And Ms. Williamson, by all means, you are welcome to come up and share remarks. And joining Ms. Williamson, I see him out there, is Mr. Johnson, her principal.
So much. To have this honor is great. It was totally unexpected for Equal Opportunity Schools to call and say, you have been awarded Equity Champion. We did a lot of work at Orange High School to ensure that our students were given equal access to our classes that we offer there. We are excited for year 2 that we're getting ready to roll into. And I'm also grateful to be nominated and accepted into the Future Ready Leaders Program, and excited for the work that's gonna happen here. And also I have Mr. Johnson here that always supports anything that I decide to do at the school level as well. So I appreciate his support. Thank you all so much.
All right. And so next, we are so thrilled to recognize Ms. Robin Lowman, the Gifted Education Enrichment Specialist at Eflin Cheeks Global Elementary School. So Ms. Lowman was selected for the High Point University Leadership Academy starting this month. The High Point University Leadership Academy is partnering with districts, Guilford County, Union, Vance, Winston-Salem, Forsyth, and now Orange County Schools to work collaboratively to prepare principal candidates to return to their home districts after a 2-year intensive leadership development program that will prepare them to transform low-performing schools into learning environments that result in high performance for all students. Ms. Lowman will earn a master's degree in educational leadership and be eligible for North Carolina licensure as a school administrator upon successfully completing the program. Her salary, tuition, and textbook costs will be provided by the program. So Ms. Lowman is joining us tonight, and we applaud her on this accomplishment. Ms. Lowman, we invite you to the podium to share remarks.
I just want to thank the board, Dr. Felder, Orange County Schools for partnering with HPU and giving this opportunity to the staff here. We have some great leaders in our schools. I think as soon as word gets out that this is a thing, it's going to blow up with all our applications. So I just want to say thank you so much.
Thank you. Tonight, we also want to recognize Melinda Fornes, who, Ms. Fornes was surprised at the 2022 Career and Technical Education Summer Conference by being named the 2022 Central Region Curriculum and Instructional Management Coordinator of the Year. All right, and while the Curriculum Instruction Management Coordinator reports to the CTE Director, in our case, Ms. Shannon Braxton, and the position relates directly to providing instructional support to CTE teachers and students, people in these roles, like Ms. Fornes, also work closely with the overall curriculum and instruction team, including school-based literacy and math facilitators and others. So to be named the Regional Curriculum and Instructional Management Coordinator of the Year, Ms. Fornes was nominated and selected by her professional peers in the North Central region. The Curriculum and Instructional Management Coordinators essentially become experts in every course offering in CTE. So they can be model teachers, demonstrate and give support to CTE teachers and students in every CTE classroom. So it's a hands-on job for sure. And it is one that Ms. Fornes shared that she likes the most about the job. And so I also want to mention that the staff in the role that Ms. Fornes has also ensure compliance in every course in which students can earn industry-level credentials while still in high school. This gives students an advantage that even some adults do not have when it comes to applying for jobs and being considered for hire. And the scope and reach of the job is way broader than the responsibilities I just described. So Ms. Fornes has a passion to make a difference, not only to teachers and students she serves, but also to her professional peers. For example, she took it upon herself to organize an informal, regular after-hours meetup for several of her counterparts from neighboring districts, just to talk and to work out issues. And last October, Orange County School CTE records were audited at random by NCDPI, and there was not one single finding to the report as a result of her work. I see you, Ms. Braxton. In the coming weeks, Ms. Fornes will complete a portfolio to be eligible to compete for the state title, which will be announced at the annual fall CTE conference in October. So we are so proud of Ms. Fornes, and we congratulate her tonight, and we invite her to the podium to share remarks. So congratulations.
Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Felder. Wow. Thank you, board members. Dr. Felder again, Orange County Schools. It is so nice and wonderful to have a district celebrate and honor each of us tonight. I am honored to be recognized and named as the North Central Region CIMC. It's such a big title, but I'm the CIMC My mom, I have to explain to my own parents, my mom, she was like, what is a curriculum and instructional management coordinator? And basically, to put it in a nutshell, I promote CTE, I promote our teachers and our students, and I do curriculum and instruction. I teach teachers and do testing. So thank you very much for this honor. It's a pleasure to work for Orange County Schools and to represent Orange County Schools as part of the North Central region. Thank you.
We are also recognizing 3 of our students who participated in the inaugural Summer Careers Academy. This is a new registered youth apprenticeship program designed as an 8-week summer career training program that connects local learners ages 16 to 24 with new skills and paid work experiences in compelling career paths. The inaugural program launched in Orange County with a focus on the skilled trades and will expand to other industries such as healthcare and IT and other counties in subsequent years. The Summer Careers Academy is powered in part by the Carolina Chamber. There were 15 students in the program, 3 of whom were from Orange County. So we would like to congratulate Andrew Dickens from Cedar Ridge High School, Emmanuel Cruz from Orange High School, and Jack Garrett from Cedar Ridge High School on successfully completing the program. A graduation ceremony was held on Friday, August 5th to celebrate their achievement, and we are celebrating them again tonight. So congratulations to the students. All right, well, Mr. Atherton, that concludes recognitions for this evening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Felder. The next item on our agenda is the agenda adoption. Do we have a motion?
Motion to adopt the agenda?
Second.
All in favor? Dr. Moore?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. We normally would have public comments. We have no one that has signed up, so we'll move straight to board comments, and we'll start with Ms. Smiley.
Sounds good. I just wanted to thank all of the staff members who were involved in planning the board retreat, and Dr. Felder. I thought it was really productive, really a very, very good use of time. Thank you to the staff members who came and took some time out of your weekend to have conversation with the board. And then I went to the Career Academy graduation also on Friday, and just wanted to, Ms. Braxton already left. All right, I wanted to say thank you to Ms. Braxton for her effort to get that initiative going, and to Mr. Pipkin, who was the teacher from Cedar Ridge who did the classroom component for those students. He just finished his first year of teaching and signed up to lead this program in the summer, and I just thought it was awesome. The program did a lot to eliminate barriers so students could participate. So they provided transportation if they needed it. They provided them meal cards. They paid them a good wage. It was just very cool to see the beginning of that program.
Thank you. Ani?
No comments.
Andre?
I will say that the board retreat was great. Food was awesome. And finally, I think when we recognize our teachers and our students, that's very, very important. And being sincere when we do that, that is huge as well. So I think as we continue to do that, our district will do very well.
Thank you. Carrie?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo appreciation for the retreat and also a shout out for the Summer Careers Academy, which was just a broad and deep collaboration. It had elected officials from across Orange County. Our former board member, Tony McKnight, was part of one of the apprenticeship groups. And so these students were pre-apprentices, and then there are opportunities for continued apprenticeship, including educational supports. It just is really exciting that we have this program. There's a lot of collaboration with our teachers and what Orange County schools could provide from classroom instruction with Mr. Pipkin and Shannon Braxton's leadership and others. And I also just want to mention there's a class I took in June. It was a week-long Spanish conversation for educators that Durham Tech offered. And this is going to be offered regularly. And there were a number of teachers from Orange County Schools in some of the classes. I was in a class with a couple teachers from Orange Middle School. And I think this just really supports our goal 3. There was a lot of conversation about like how to be culturally aware, as well as resources for language tools. And so I appreciate that we have that offering that the district's supporting and that is so accessible at Durham Tech.
All right, thank you. Ms. Purcell?
Well, I would also like to echo what everyone has said about the retreat. For those of you who don't know, we had a retreat on Friday and Saturday. It was excellent. I would like to thank Dr. Felder and Franklin McCoon because he pulled a lot of things together along with Dr. Felder and made it a very interesting learning experience, especially for those of us who've not sat on a board before. I would also like to give a big shout out to those who've been recognized tonight. And I know what Ms. Roulhac has been through because I did the same thing. And it is a wonderful program. And I'm glad you and I hope others in Orange County get to be a part of the DLP process because it is a great program to do. And I appreciate all of the work that our administrators have been doing this summer because it's not a restful summer. I know as you're getting ready just to open school in just a few weeks. And so I give a big shout out and thank you to all of our Orange County Schools administrators who have been working very hard all summer long. And I'm hoping that you have a very successful opening day of school. Thank you.
Thank you. I too would just like to echo the board retreat and everybody that was involved and all the staff that came to it, especially on the weekend. The Summer Careers Academy, I think Carrie and Ms. Smiley definitely covered it. It was amazing to hear the students' stories about how they first walked in and how they walked out and all the things that they had learned, especially hands-on learning. It was just really reassuring to hear our programs. I also got a chance to go to both of the band camps at Cedar Ridge High School in Orange. It was great to see the students out and preparing for the games that are coming up in just a week and a half at this point. And the last thing I just wanted to mention is I did want to take time to thank the Orange County Commissioners for ensuring we have this facility to have our meetings in. If they wouldn't help us ensure we get priority, we would be in a very small room with very limited space. So I just wanted to say thank you to them. With that, we will move now to consent agenda. Is there anything anyone wants to pull from consent? All right, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Dr. Moore?
Yes.
All right, anyone opposed? All right, consent agenda has passed. We will now move into discussion and action. And first topic for tonight, Operations Services update.
Yes. And so as Mr. Aberle and his team makes their way to the podium, so with Hillsborough Elementary School open and our traditional schools opening, at this first regular board meeting of the school year, we want to provide an update on a number of health and safety items for the new school year, which were made in our traditional fashion, and that is in collaboration with the Orange County Health Department and the ABC Science Collaborative. And tonight, we have Ms. Quintana Stewart, Director of the Orange County Health Department, and Dr. Danny Benjamin, co-chair of the ABC Science Collaborative, Distinguished Professor of Pediatrics, Duke University School of Medicine, joining us virtually. So I will turn things over to Mr. Aberle, Deputy Superintendent.
All right, thank you very much. We appreciate our special guest being with us tonight and wanted to give an update on currently where we are, what our operational readiness is, And first, I want to just thank Ms. Stewart and Dr. Benjamin for their collaboration with the Orange County Schools has been continuous, has been throughout the entire pandemic. Not only them, but their teams of many individuals we've worked with, both at the Health Department and at the ABC Science Collaborative over the last year or so. And whenever we need to call a meeting or to reach out, they've always been there, very responsive, and always willing to share information, especially what's on the horizon, talk about and review our data, and then any strategies that we are thinking about employing or putting in place. So I do want to just again stress how grateful and appreciative we are as a school district to have such wonderful partners to guide us through the pandemic. Prior to the pandemic, school districts relied on a contagious disease policy. And what school districts across the country realized in the early days of COVID-19 is those pandemic plans did not plan on a contagious disease, highly transmissible, as we were seeing at that point in time. And so really, work had to be done in order to keep schools open, to put many safety measures in place, and we all know what that looked like the first 9 to 12 months of the pandemic. But having partners and to provide the technical assistance and the knowledge just has been critical, and we feel very good about our preparedness and our readiness moving forward, no matter what those challenges may be, knowing that we have a great team to help and assist us. And we'll be talking more tonight about moving back to our contagious disease policies as we continue on. But first, I'd like to just ask Ms. Stewart and Dr. Benjamin if you have any opening or general comments you'd like to make to the board. And we'll start with Ms. Stewart.
Good evening, board, Dr. Felder. And I echo everything that you all just stated. I too appreciate our partnership and our collaboration as we continue to get through this pandemic. And so again, I appreciate you all calling and including us in on the conversation and being such cooperative partners.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. And Dr. Benjamin?
Okay, great. Thanks, Patrick. Thanks for having me again, and thanks to the board and to the leadership team at Orange County Schools. I think for the most part, certainly the start of the school year is one where we can look forward to moving away from most of the school districts acting as essentially healthcare and COVID mitigation, and shift more firmly into learning organizations. So if you want me to provide any context to that, I will. Otherwise, I'm happy to be speak when called on. Either way that works for you all.
All right, so with that, what I'd like to do, thank you, Dr. Benjamin, is bring in Sylvia Compton, our lead district nurse, and she's going to walk through our health and safety updates. We have just several items this evening, and certainly want to give an opportunity for not only the board, but our guests to ask questions as well. I'll get it moving here in a second.
Okay.
Thank you. Next slide. All right, you can.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. How are we this evening? So as Dr. Benjamin said, we definitely want to start the new school year to focus more on education. We definitely have had lots of challenges with COVID and pandemic protocols and procedures. With that said, the state did sunset strong schools this past June with the recommendation to follow CDC guidance for school setting, as well as to collaborate with our local health department. We no longer are recommending for staff to report vaccination status or participate in any screening programs. Mask is recommended when we are in high community transmission levels. No longer are we recommending schools to implement physical distancing strategies. Universal contact tracing is not recommended, and what we mean by that, we no longer have to do individual contact tracing. And in discussion with our local health department, we know that we are all short-staffed with teachers, nurses, everything. So as far as notifying our population and our public, we're still going to be using the district dashboard. We will be reporting positive cases that are reported to us on a weekly basis. School nurses will still be responsible to collect that data and share that with our health department. And we will be monitoring days out and days returning with the required masking 5 days after isolation. We will continue to follow Orange County's health department's guidance on when we should go back to full masking or changing any of those protocols as the pandemic may change. Next slide, please. We're still going to continue our cleaning as we do. We're using our air purifiers, ventilation. High filtration masks are available for students and staff upon request. We will be offering at-home home test kits to our student population and teachers. The state of North Carolina is recommending that we do pass those out. We have gotten about 1,700 tests that we have been distributing throughout the summer right now, currently waiting on a new order to come in. We'll also make sure that we have our community aware of where they can place an order so they get these tests mailed directly to their home. With the abundance of the at-home test available right now, that is not taking a long time to get to the home, usually within the week, sometimes less. We still will be tracking the case count, as I said, on the dashboard by weekly basis. And then we will also communicate any other community-based vaccination centers, booster clinics, and where else they can get tested if they can't get diagnostic testing locally. They're still available on the CDC website as well and the health department. We will be asking for students and staff to stay home if they are symptomatic. We are not requiring the PCR testing. We are accepting the antigen rapid test. All they have to do is send us a picture of the test, let the school nurse know, and they can return to campus. We're not required that PCR test. Any questions?
Sarah?
I have a few. Thank you both so much. I'll just start with one and then we can go around to others. So I know that Hillsborough Elementary has already been in school for a few weeks. And so I'm curious what early trends we are seeing there. We are still, as you mentioned, in high community transmission where the CDC does recommend masking, and I see we're going to make it optional. And part of what I am wondering is how much in-school transmission have we seen? How many student absences do we see? And then, on the sub-capacity, on the staffing side, how much have we had to use subs? And then if we extrapolate that out to 13 schools, do we expect to have enough sub-capacity?
Sure. So I absolutely have that information for you. So as of July, when staff came back to school those first couple of weeks, there were no reported positive cases for staff. The first week when students returned to school, there were 6 positive student cases reported after being on campus. We did have more reported positive, but they were never on campus, so those numbers are not included. 0 staff members. I do have connection, it's very minimal. There's a set of siblings there and a couple that were in the same classroom. The following week, we have 1 positive student, no staff. That 1 student can be connected with another student from the week prior in the same classroom. This past week here, we've only had 1 positive student and no staff. There is no connection with any other students when we will be doing weekly data. So that has got us caught up. And as well, we're still at this moment, still doing diagnostic testing on campus. So if that were as well, we are requesting, it's no longer recommended to be done on campus. There's already been talk about that. It's been in the news. The CDC has recommended, and that's just to decrease the strain of staff we currently have.
Karen?
Thank you. I have a question, and thank you, Ms. Stewart and Dr. Benjamin, for joining us and your support as well. I have a question just around, there's some language in the abstract around number 2, where it talks about that Masking won't be required unless Orange County Health Department deems it necessary. And I know by the end of the school year, that was if there was a cluster, you might have a school or a wing in a school. But then there's a phrase, or when schools meet intermediary attendance thresholds in the contagious disease plan, for example, 10%. I don't know what that refers to.
Sure. So currently, right now, in the past, we did have contagious disease policies. We do have procedures in place that we do communicate with our local health department, as well as CDC guides us on that. The 10% threshold was if we had a report of 10% of the student population at that specific campus it could have been flu, it can be any other contagious disease. We would also be in communication with the health department. So we're monitoring the number of cases versus the population. 10% is not a set number at the moment. We're going to discuss that further just because of COVID, and now we're in that BA.5 strain. But right now, basically what we're saying is we do go based on the health department's recommendation. It could be 10%, it could be less. As far as the clusters are going, we are continuously watching rates. As of right now, in the last 14 days, at Hillsborough Elementary, there were only 3 links that we can say. So that still stands. So the cluster definition and threshold, it was in addition to it in a change. A cluster is 5 cases that can be linked to each other within a 14-day period. That means they either ride the same bus, they're in the same classroom, after school care. Also, the CDC and the state included a cluster is also 15 reported positive cases on that campus within a 14-day period of each other without any connection. We have not met those thresholds as of yet.
Sarah?
Yeah, that's really reassuring about the trend at HES so far. So that's great, and thank you so much for having that data. Another thing I'm wondering about is to what extent outdoor meals will be encouraged. I'm thinking, if our approach is masks are recommended, but it's sort of personal choice, the place where a family who chooses to mask loses that choice is at an indoor mealtime or in indoor times where people are taking masks off. And so if I'm a parent who wants my child to mask at school for whatever reason, will they be able to have outdoor meals? How does that work?
So I'm not sure if Dr. Benjamin's wanted to jump in as well, but one thing we are doing is we still have tents, we still have outdoor eating areas, learning areas on all the campuses. We've not deactivated any of that. That's still available. Principals and schools can use those, but there's not a threshold requirement to use those. It's as needed, weather permitting, scheduling permitting. They would have the ability to eat meals outdoors still. But as far as the toolkit and the recommendations and requirements, even in the indoor settings, the state, when they rolled back the North Carolina Strong Schools Toolkit, was very clear about even indoors, there is no requirement or strategy that needs to be employed as far as 3 feet or 6 feet of physical distancing anymore. So again, that strategy is available. There are other strategies that we certainly continue to monitor and will have available to us should we need them in the future, but we've not told anyone to disassemble picnic tables or outdoor eating areas or tents, et cetera. And in fact, I think our long-range plans is to try to make some more permanent structures on the campuses.
That's great. So just to clarify, if I'm a parent who doesn't want my child taking off their mask indoors with other people, should I email the principal? What is the step there if they want to?
Well, I would say anytime there's a concern in reference to health or safety on a school campus, reach out to the school nurse and certainly have a conversation with the principal. What I don't think would be feasible to be able to do it is if the class is scheduled to eat meals in the cafeteria, would be to schedule an individual child to have an adult take them outdoors to eat outdoors. I think the other strategies we're still using, we have air purifiers We have ventilation that's taking place. I think there's other accommodations that could probably be looked at as well. But the amount of time, even if a child is masking, the amount of time they're taking off their mask to eat is still a very minimal amount of time in an indoor space.
I wonder if it's okay, if Dr. Benjamin may want to weigh in on this. We had a conversation about this very topic last week. Dr. Benjamin, please.
Sure, thanks. So I think there's 2 points to the masking and school lunch policy. One's the individual risk, which Ms. Smiley touched on, and I think really brought it out very clearly. And then the other is the public risk. So when students are in, from a public health perspective first, when students are in a universal masking setting, and the strategy of the school district is risk aversion or COVID minimalization, then eating outside on a very, very consistent basis becomes very important, especially for the variants like Omicron and BA5, because they can be so contagious in a large group of children in a cafeteria setting. That public health aspect really goes away in the optional masking environment, because the children are in algebra class or finger painting class or whatever the case may be for 8 hours a day, and are getting so much exposure relative to the 15 or 20 minutes that they have their mask on. For the individual child, unlike the public health universal masking, where we have, through research, defined how much benefit there is to masking and how much reduction there is, on the order of 80 to 90% for universal masking, the amount of risk reduction for a child who they wear a mask, but they are in a room full of students who do not mask, that is less well defined. So the answer here is going to be much less precise, and as follows. That child who has, let's say, the school district is risk tolerant, but the family is risk averse, that child will want to do a couple of things. They do probably get some protection from that, wearing that mask. We've experienced that in healthcare. We speculate that that's the case also in the school setting. And so that's a way that a risk-averse family can respond to how their children attend schools. At that point, there is clearly less risk by eating outside. There's somewhat less risk by being considerably far apart from one's peers, although that is much, much, much less impressive than the risk reduction outside. And then there is the other things that families can do if they're not able to, for weather or for other reasons, not have their child eat outside. The time spent with mask off can be minimized, and that can be done as follows. Meal prep, get all of that done before taking the mask off, coach the child at home about that. Hand hygiene before taking the mask off, then take the mask off, eat quickly but safely, and then put the mask back on. The exposure risk there is not zero, but it is pretty low. We speculate it's very low for that 10 to 15 to 20 minutes. We speculate that that particular window is going to be relatively low. And the reason we think that's low is that even when adults or children are infected at school, we know from ABC research that was done in partnership with you and other districts, that even having that child or that family member unmasked at home for the next 2 weeks only results in a 28% chance of transmission of COVID. And so in an area which has very high prior vaccination, very high prior infection, as we have in Orange County, that risk experienced in those few minutes we think is going to be low. It certainly won't be zero.
Great, thank you, Dr. Benjamin.
Any other questions from board members? So I just had one additional question about a data point. So besides HES, we've had the Read to Achieve, Learning Recovery credits. We've had the LEAD, LEAP Camp, and STAR in the middle that were all going on in our multiple schools, multiple kids, multiple field trips. And do we have data from the results of that?
So yes, we do. And what I can tell you is, without looking, because I didn't prepare for that and I should have, there was one instant where an entire group had to remask due to reaching the threshold of a cluster. And they went back to fully masking for 10 full days. And that was the only incident that we had within those camps that we had to go back and remask. So a lot of that, again, we look back at the cluster definition. That cluster definition was the 5 that we can link, and we actually had 6 in that population that had tested positive within a 7-day window. So it was caught fairly quickly with the change that the board voted of for the summer camps. That group masked for the full 10 days, and we didn't have any further issues where we had any other clusters. But I will be more than happy to gather the individual information if you'd like that too.
Not required for me. Thank you so much.
And I can add to that was right after the July 4th holiday and the first week of a startup of a camp. So again, as was experienced at Hillsborough, just the number of folks coming back reporting cases was high that week.
All right, thank you so much.
All right, so the next part of this update, thank you, Dr. Benjamin and Ms. Stewart. We're going to move on to some other safety-related items. So I'm not sure if you wanted to stay on the call for this part or not, but you're more than welcome to continue. So I want to bring up Andrew Poole, our Director of Security. We have some school security strategies and updates to convey this evening, so thank you.
Hi, good evening. Andrew Poole, Director of Security. Over the last couple months and continuing into the school year, this district has and will continue to focus efforts on security. If you look at this list up here, I'll highlight a couple of them. So right now we're in the process of distributing radios throughout the district. That's going into the schools, buses, transportation operations. That way, obviously, we won't have an issue with communication, just in case we need to relay information from one school to the next. We are getting a new visitor management system. One of the biggest things about this visitor management system, parents and visitors, they'll be required to check in at the front office, and they'll have to have a reason as to why they are checking in, just for accountability and tracking purposes. If you see highlighted, keeping all doors locked and closed, one of the biggest things, obviously, you can spend all the money in the world on security measures, but one of the biggest things is you're only as strong as your weakest link. Being able to hold your counterpart accountable is a big thing. So keeping all doors locked and secured. So one of the things, obviously, I discussed with some of y'all in the past, having rocks and stuff indoors. So making sure that if for some reason a teacher or student is propping open a door, making sure that they are closed. Stop the Bleed kit. We are in the process right now of coming up with some training district-wide. That way we can go ahead and distribute these Stop the Bleed kits in every classroom. Heaven forbid something does happen, but at least we will be prepared for that. Next slide, please. So say something anonymous tip. So this right here is a 24/7, 365 system. It's 3 different ways. You got a mobile app, telephone, and then you can also go web-based just in case you want to report a threat or self-harm, things like that. Being able to report something if you're afraid something might come back on you. It is anonymous, so you don't have to necessarily report your information, but at least the information is out there for someone. Down at the bottom, we want to relay that obviously making false threats or even a threat of any kind, it's a very serious action, and we want to make sure that families are relaying to their child, their student, that it is serious and you could be held liable or accountable for it. Yeah.
So a couple items. Thank you, Andrew. I wanted to just emphasize again, if there's any individual that has knowledge or concern of a threat to the safety of a student or the school environment, you can call 911, obviously, and report that directly to law enforcement, or use the Say Something anonymous reporting app. There is a crisis center. It's not a hotline with just a call center. It is actually a crisis center. There are trained individuals, not only from emergency management, but understand threat assessments, partner directly with our local law enforcement, and suicide prevention as well. There are crisis counselors available 24/7. And so if there's a concern, a threat to school safety or self-harm, that can be reported to the crisis center, and they will relay back to law enforcement or to the school district. And we involve our school social workers and school counselors in outreach as well. And it's important that we communicate to the public that if you have information, although sometimes we try to respond to email, that's not the best way to communicate a threat. If it's something we need to respond to quickly and immediately, to please utilize 911 or utilize the app, because the app, we have staff members at the district that are on call. We will get those, whether it's 2 a.m. or 3 a.m., 5 o'clock the next morning. You don't have to wait for school to open up and then let someone know. We will immediately start working with law enforcement or our partners in public safety to address that concern immediately. And just wanted to emphasize as we communicate this year. For students in grades 6 through 12, they can download and utilize the app. The national group that works on the Say Something Anonymous reporting app is working on a lower elementary version, and that is yet to be rolled out. And then I wanted to mention, I'll go to the next slide, for some additional supports that we're going to need. We will be bringing back a transfer of funding request from some of our capital reserves to move money over for school safety and security equipment. But then we're also going to be utilizing and applying for grants. The grant window opened up last Friday, the 5th. We have 25 days to apply for state grants for school safety through the Center for Safer Schools. And that can help us purchase safety equipment, safety training. It can also be used to offset, and we've used that in the past, to offset costs for SROs, especially at the middle school level. And so that grant window has opened up, and we'll be bringing back information about additional external money that we'll be applying for in the schools. But with our capital fund transfer, there was a safety and security allotment that was done several years ago, and you heard Andrew talk about systems and things that we've put in place. So we've exhausted those funds, but we'll continually looking at ways that we can make upgrades to our campuses to make them safer. And so we just wanted to let you know that we would be back. The Center for Safer Schools is growing. There's several areas that they provide support to school districts now. One is with mental health training and mental health information out across the state, because we know when it comes to threats to school safety, there is a mental health component to that, and making sure that those resources are recognized as part of that. There's emergency response, emergency planning that's available for assistance through the center, and we're working with them to complete our school crisis plans. There is, obviously, I talked about the grants that are available as well, and then they provide technical assistance to school districts as well. And so Andrew and I had the opportunity to be with the center last week with school districts, superintendents, law enforcement agencies, individuals in similar roles as us for 4 days last week, listening and learning and getting more information about how we can partner together with the center, but also with other school districts on best practices. And so I just wanted to recognize that the state does now have the center operational to provide that technical and other assistance. Any questions about our health and safety updates, including the school security?
I just have a quick one about the Say Something app. How and when do students learn about that?
So several ways. We have communication, posters, information that's gone out when the state rolled out the pilots, and Orange County was actually one of the early adopters with the pilot for that. We have additional communication that will be going out to our families, PTAs, individual students, and then there's actual training that takes place as well for the students in grades 6 through 12 of how to use the app and how to get connected and to report. And so it's been very effective. The Say Something reporting works, and we have certainly responded to items we otherwise wouldn't have known about had they not been reported, and especially in cases for suicide prevention. I will say that has been just remarkable, the response of individuals seeking out help for other individuals, and how lives, I can say, have been saved because individuals were able to get the help they needed.
Andre?
Yes, to piggyback off of what Sarah was asking and saying as well, I have seen in the past where short videos at the beginning of the school year sent out to families about, either Say Something app or any other security information does help out quite well, and it's able to, families are able to get that information well needed, so.
Mr. Abley, are our counselors and social workers promoting this, working with students, talking with staff about it? What is their role in this?
So their role is integral in the process, is because as far as the district team, we represent part of the team when it comes to threat assessments and physical harm or violence to the school setting. Our counselors and social workers work closely with Dr. Dreyer in her department for the mental health aspect, the mental health components, the suicide prevention components. So we tag team based on the threat, based on the response that's needed. And they're also trained on the app, but it's continual. It's just like Mr. Richmond just said, it's not a one-time item. We have a new school year, we have new staff members, we have new individuals, and constantly reminding folks and going through the training as to what this is and how we use it. And there's additional components that are being rolled out as well, and we hope to bring those in the district as well, which really gets the kids more involved in establishing positive relationships. And it all starts with hello and how are you? And just a direct outreach to your fellow students every day.
Thank you.
Just one from me. Since we do know there's a website and an application, I would like us to preload this on the systems. I mean, we have Chromebooks, we could definitely preload it. And also put the Square UPC throughout our buildings so a student can just walk over there with their phone, scan it, and put the app on there, because we know that students are very technological. And I think that will help, because when they need it the most, it's going to be the hardest to find. And I think if we put it on the entry of the buildings or common areas for students, I think that will help and also remove the barrier for them to have to go figure out where to find it. So those, just a couple of recommendations I would have.
Thank you. We do have one action item within the presentation this evening. We are recommending, as part of the health and safety updates, that the board include action this evening, rescinding the previous board action requiring the staff members and volunteers to be vaccinated or test for COVID-19. That was part of the rollback in the with the Strong Schools Toolkit being removed. They no longer recommended the tracking of the vaccination status or the weekly testing. We do feel like, although there is still continual protection of individuals who received the initial vaccinations, it's really the boosters as well at this point in time, continuing to promote boosters or eligibility for whatever vaccinations are available. But we would ask that we move away following the recommendations. And we did check with Orange County, and there is no Orange County requirement for their employees to report as well.
I'll move the superintendent's recommendation.
Second.
Just for clarity, on the health or both items? So there are two.
I'm sorry, Patrick, the item is to rescind the.
That's the only recommendation
Okay,
this evening.
I guess all I was meaning was it was a list of items, so we're just approving.
Just this one.
Approving just this.
Let me try again. So there were a list of items that we covered that we would be doing as part of this recommendation, and this is just saying to approve that list of recommendations from the superintendent.
As I understood it, the only action requested was the board had previously directed that employees be required to be vaccinated, so that would require board action to rescind that recommendation. Otherwise, there was just an update. That was the only action that I heard is requested.
Yeah, prior to the summer.
Vaccinating or testing.
Okay.
Yeah, prior to the summer, the last action of the board was saying the superintendent would implement any strategies or recommendations in consultation with the health department. And so we're still operating under the other recommendations we presented this evening.
Excellent. Thank you for the clarity. Any other discussion? All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Dr. Moore? Thank you. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. So I would like to request from the board that we shift the agenda a little bit. We have guests, and I think it would be in the best interest to have them next. Would the board be willing to entertain that change?
Absolutely.
All right, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Dr. Moore?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, with that, Dr. Felder?
Thank you so much, Board, for that amendment to the agenda. So at this time, I'd like to welcome Mr. Lee Williams II, Orange County Schools' new Chief Equity Officer. And joining Mr. Lee Williams II is Dr. Jessica Dreyer, who is the district's new Director for Student Engagement and Support Services. And they will kick off this section of the agenda, which is around social emotional learning.
Good evening, everyone. Excuse me, still struggling with little voice issues. First of all, thank you so much for making the change so our beautiful young minds can speak their piece and also get home at a decent hour. So I do very much appreciate the opportunity. Once again, my name is Lee A. Williams II. I go by the pronouns he, him, and his. I'm very excited to be the new Chief Equity Officer here in Orange County Schools. Standing beside me is Dr. Dreyer. I'll allow her to introduce herself.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Jessica Dreyer. I am the Director of Student Engagement and Support Services. Say that 3 times fast. And here to share some information with you all about some updates with social emotional learning and our panorama data.
So we're very excited. One thing I want to put in context is as we're discussing this tonight, these are not things that are in opposition to instruction. These are things that sit in conjunction with to help us move all things forward for each and every child.
So we bring to you today 3 items specifically in the areas of social emotional learning, where we'll give you some updates about the recently approved curriculum, Rethink Ed. We'll also share some data from our Winter 22 Panorama Social Emotional Learning Competency Survey that was taken by our students, and then also provide some updates on the release and revision of our Code of Conduct, Character, and Support. So just want to review what is social emotional learning, just to refresh our minds in that area. And social emotional learning is the process through where young people and also adults learn about how to manage and cope with emotions that they may face, how to do things properly when they are facing certain emotions. It can be as simple as making and keeping friends, or when we are sad or feeling angry, how do we deal with those emotions when we are dealing with other people and also with ourselves. When we hear about social emotional learning, we usually think about our students and teaching them as well, but there's also a large component as well where we're teaching our adults not only how to teach our students and model for our students appropriate behaviors, but for themselves. And we're thinking about self-care and keeping ourselves well so that we can be there for our students. There is a model by Castle that we go by. There have 5 competencies of areas that we think about when we're looking at those behaviors and how we deal with each of them. The importance of social emotional learning, again, making sure that we're all able to maintain and cope a living and do the things that we are needing to do in all areas, personally and professionally. As you can see here by this quote, just an excerpt from it, an emerging benefit of explicit social emotional learning instruction is that it builds the emotional intelligence and agility that business and industry is starting to name among the most desired workforce skills. It's soft skills, how we deal with people, how we interact with those that we're working with and interacting with. So a rollout plan, just briefly, for implementing our curriculum chosen, which is Rethink Ed. Coming up on this Thursday, which is August 11th, we will gather the principals and district administrators and we'll go over with them the platform itself and how to collect data and review data that is collected from use of the system and the implementation calendar and what that will look like. That will be used K-12. Then following that, on August 24th, we'll have a train the trainer session where principals have selected staff and teachers in their building to be subject matter experts. They will pose as points of contact in the building, so they will be trained fully on the platform and its use, and then will be charged with going back and teaching their staff on how to use it. They will get a time period of a couple of weeks to be able to take this information back to their staff to train them with the goal of September 12th, full implementation in all 13 of our schools. Now moving on to panorama data, taking a look at the winter 2022 survey that was taken with our students in grades 3 through 12. We're going to look at those competency measures and looks at what information that we received from our students, and then highlight positives and areas of concern that came from that, and then wanting to create a more inclusive and welcoming environment for our students and how we can do that based off of the data that's shared with you tonight. So first you'll see here that this is for the responses for grades 3 through 5. The surveys are split 3-5 and 6-12. And the topics that you see on the left-hand side are the 5 areas that were surveyed for those students. In the center and the percentages, you'll see that is the percent favorable. So any percentage that you see is the percentage of students who answered favorably in that area. The last column is benchmarks, which is compared with national data of all school districts in the US that use and take these surveys. What you'll see highlighted, which I'll point out, is the area of emotional regulation for these students. 48% of those students answered favorably to that area. Some highlights are some positive results. As you can see here, there are some questions that were asked in the 5 areas. 2 to highlight would be that students feel like they have teachers or adults that they can count on. And also they have other adults outside of the school or family members that they can count on. And as you can see, these are more than 85% favorable answered by these students. Some areas of concern for grades 3 through 5 that you can see here. Those are under 50% favorable. 2 areas of concern to highlight: are you able to pull yourself out of a bad mood? So some students feel like they struggle a little bit with pulling themselves out of a bad mood when they are feeling that way. And then when people around you get angry, how relaxed can you stay? And so that's very indicative of how they might react when people around them are angry. Moving on to the secondary SEL competency measures. As you can see here, there are quite a few more areas of discussion for these students, but these questions are a little bit more age appropriate for secondary students than they are for high school students. In those areas, I would like to note that there are a few areas that you see that do not have benchmark percentiles, and that's because some of these questions being new, there's not enough national data to provide a benchmark for that yet. So hopefully we'll be able to do that soon. 3 areas to highlight are diversity and inclusion, emotional regulation, and social perspective taking. Those were the lowest in favorability. Moving on to some positive results for our secondary students. 92% of students were favorable, and my school is welcoming, understanding, and kind towards parents and caregivers. So they do feel that schools are welcoming when visitors and parents come into the building. And also that adults in my school model behaviors that they expect, bless you, which is at 81% favorable. Some areas of concern for our secondary students to note: during the past 30 days, how clearly were you able to describe your feelings? As you can see here, 31% of students answered favorably to that, meaning there is a high majority of students who felt like they were unable to express their feelings. 48% of students hear hurtful comments about students from other students in their school. And then very concerning to highlight is 14% of students hear hurtful comments about students based off of race, gender, sexual orientation, religion, disabilities, etc., from adults in our schools. And based off of that percentage, very low, a very area of concern, wanted to make sure that we were addressing that for our students and helping our staff to be able to support our students in those areas. So I will turn this over to Mr. Williams.
Upon coming to Orange County Schools, Dr. Felder and I had a conversation. And during the conversation, she previewed me to that she had a chance to speak with some very courageous students who didn't mind sharing their story about things that happened, oppressive language that had occurred to them. Not only did she want to share their story, but she also shared that they had the power and the knowledge and the desire to make a change. So I said, well, dog, I want to meet them too. So I got excited. I got a chance to reach out and meet these beautifully brilliant and talented young ladies. And tonight we are graced with their presence, as a few of them are going to share their experiences that they've had. And then we'll talk about how we're going to move forward.
I just want to say I'm a little nervous. So
Take your
You're
time.
good, yeah.
Take your time.
Thank you for being here.
I just want to say thank you all for taking the time to listen to what I have to say. And my name is Amia. African American students get pushed while walking up and down the hallways by white students that say the N-word. Some teachers do not take this as serious as it should be taken. Teachers will hear this word being used and ask students who used it, but don't take action after asking. A lot of African American students don't speak out because they know for a fact that teachers will not address it. Since the teachers are not representing what to do when a situation like this occurs, students don't know how to handle it. I feel like teachers should have some sort of training on how to deal with students saying the N-word instead of telling students, don't say it again. Or much worse, an administrator telling me everything about me is political and that I should expect those type of comments. Having admin take that training and be serious will help them to know how to deal with these type of issues this upcoming school year. I also want to say that I think the N-word should be educated as early as 3rd grade, allowing teachers to teach about the word. Thank you for listening and allowing me to my voice to be heard.
My name is Anaya, and I'm here to speak on an issue that happened during my 6th grade year. I had a teacher who was always on her phone watching Netflix or simply just having unclassroom related conversations. And it really affected lots of students, including myself, because we never had the opportunity to actually learn things in the classroom like we're supposed to. And I know that even with the teacher I had, I still find a way to learn and to know my stuff, but I worry about the other students and future students coming in. I don't know what you guys should do, but I do know that this isn't just an issue in one classroom, it happens in multiple. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Ericaya, and I go to Orange. There was a student that was being treated for an emergency because she had fainted. Our friends were concerned and watched as she was being treated. I noticed that the teacher became uncomfortable with many Black students being around her. We were told to go to a random classroom. At this point, she began yelling at us, telling that we were she was yelling at us when we were walking into the classroom. I feel like teachers shouldn't feel uncomfortable around Black students. I think teachers should speak calmly to students and feel comfortable around all races. She also needed to ask us about how we were doing. We were not okay and we needed support. Thank you for listening to me, and it is important that students feel comfortable and safe around all staff.
I would like for us to give an applause and also a thank you for these courageous souls and their families for being here tonight, and OCP for making sure that their voices are heard. So thank you all very much. So to hear their stories is something that is chilling and brings chills down your spine, but it also calls us to do something. The common theme that we heard tonight from our young ladies was, no one checked to see if I was okay. No one checked on my social well-being. And this is not just for our students of color. We also see these oppressive acts in our LGBTQIA+ community, students with ableism, and other things that are seen in our policy 1710. So, due to that, we've started to create the address, repair, and create document. This professional development we sent out to all teachers, a quick one-pager that they can access that'll help them guide themselves through this process. We'll also have a deeper professional development done for our teachers so they can dig deeper to understand issues of race, ableism, LGBTQIA+, and also anti-Semitism, which we've had students speak about as well. But most importantly, this cannot be done without the voice of our students. So we'll continue to gain voice from our students, get their perspectives, and then roll this out in September. Thank you. Now I'll call back to Dr. Dreyer around our Code of Conduct, Character, and Support update.
Thank you. Looking at our Code of Conduct, Character, and Support, we'll review the purposes and the outlines for release and revision for our Code of Conduct. The purposes of the Code of Conduct, Character, and Support is to make sure that we are all on the same page. It gives us that information that helps us to make sure that we're being equitable and inclusive when we are thinking about how to address behaviors that take place. For this coming school year, we are going to have it distributed online and in print. Available for our students and our families and our community to see, and our teachers as well. We'll also make sure that we do an overview with each school on how to properly use the code for this year. Taking a look and going into 23-24, it's hard to believe that we're already thinking about what that will look like for us, but it is time to begin planning. So for the code, we're going to revise the code. First thing, making sure that we are going to meet with engaging schools just to review some historicals and then how we can move forward with establishing and releasing the code, making sure that we're going to deep dive, have some draft reviews with the goal of having it completed by May 2023 so that we can do some deep PD with our staff. Looking forward to release for the 23-24 school year. And you can see here, these are just some groups that we will be working with and providing these drafts to and doing some activities with to revise the code. Thank you. Any questions or feedback?
I just want to say to the young ladies that came up and spoke, thank you. It takes some courage to do, but thank you. Continue to speak up and don't be afraid. Speak from your heart. Thank you, parents.
Sarah?
Yeah, I just want to echo that. Thank you for coming and sharing your voices. I hope that someday some of you all are sitting in seats up here, playing a role in setting the policies and deciding what kinds of trainings our teachers get and things like that. I had a question for Mr. Williams. Thank you. The document that you're preparing that'll be really sort of simple about how to interrupt or respond to racist statements and, acts like this. Will staff also, I think you said there'll be a longer professional development too. To me, a lot of it is like the practice, right? Is like the actually like getting over like your discomfort and how do you handle this? So will staff also get opportunities to practice?
Yes, ma'am, most definitely. So there'll be an ongoing professional development all throughout and also check-ins as well. The problem that we're seeing is when these oppressive acts happen, they're happening right there on the spot. And we don't believe our staff is equipped to be able to address it at that point. So to think of it, I have a document that I can go to quickly. Also a detailed guide that I'm going through over time to grow. So I have an immediate response that I can do, but I'm also growing in my practice as an educator. Yes, ma'am.
Lonnie?
A couple of things. I also want to echo thank you to the students for coming and speaking out. And just if it helps, welcome to Mr. Williams and Dr. Dreyer, because it's their first time speaking to the board too. So thank you, welcome to the district, and thank you for being here. I have, you all have taken on the heavy lift of social emotional learning, equity all together in 13 schools. So a couple of questions. As a board, and even came up in the retreat, we're becoming more interested in data-driven decision-making, school-based results. So I was curious, and you might not have to answer the question, but is it possible for us to get information about how some of these outcomes are varying by school and also by group? So are Black students having a different response than our white students or brown students?
Yes, the panorama data, which covers the SEL competencies, they are able to be broken down through district, by school, by classroom, and by individual, and also will cover those demographics as well.
Okay.
And to lift up, we'll be doing that this year 3 times a year. Last year it was done twice. So we'll do it fall, winter, and spring. So we have some good collective data that we can share.
Great, thank you.
Carrie?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the students for their courage and sharing your experience. And thank you, Dr. Dre and Mr. Williams, for putting student voices first. And these are, things that people have been experiencing in our district, since its beginnings. And it's just really necessary that these stories are told and respected, not brushed aside and dismissed as the N-word is something that Black students say to each other when, the problem is white students, and not letting that be brushed aside by teachers and administrators, and having any students, 14% of students feeling any of those oppressive comments from adults in the building themselves. So we know from our equity audit that we had developed successfully pillars for our district, and it's the communication and the consistency school to school. So we're not having islands of excellence, but that we're having that practice. And I applaud our equity department, and as well as our new member, Mr. Kumar Sathi, and the collaboration in having a tangible tool to be used day to day. So thanks.
Thank you.
Oh, Ann?
I would also like to thank the students for being here this afternoon or tonight, because I know how hard it is sometimes for students to come and speak to adults. But I also ask that as you're in the school and as you hear things, be vigilant and tell people what's going on. Have a go-to person, have a counselor, have a teacher, assistant principal, anyone that you can go to and say, this is what is happening, this is what I saw today, so that they can take care of it then, because if they don't know, they can't fix it. And it takes a lot of vigilance to do that. And so again, I appreciate your coming here today, and I hope that you have a great school year as you get ready to start. And thank you for all that you're doing. And thank you, parents, for what you're doing to help the students.
I would like to brag very quickly on one student who actually did the action and created a lesson plan to give to teachers so they could utilize in this work. So we have some very courageous students that are speaking forth and speaking out. We have to support our adults to be able to manage on what to do. So thank you for that.
That's wonderful.
Sarah?
Question about the code of conduct revision. I think only only Will and I maybe were on the board at the time that was undergoing revision. And sort of right at the end where it was about to be introduced was when COVID hit and all that. And so some of the adoption of it, I think, is just due to that. I think it was kind of not rolled out in the way that it was intended. And I know I shared with Dr. Felder my disappointment that what we ended up with was not beautiful looking, like the sample that Engaging Skills at Schools had given us, that was just like a document you'd want to read rather than Sure. But part of what I saw in the abstract was also that you think there's opportunity there for it to be a more restorative code and that. And I found that so interesting because that was why we had partnered with Engaging Schools to create it in the first place. And so could you just speak a little bit more maybe to that and where you see the opportunity is there?
Well, it's absolutely the goal. I think we've always thought in the past of the code of conduct of being that place where you find what the incident is and then what the punishment is. And we want to move to a more restorative and equitable way of doing things and providing some alternative methods to suspensions and other punitive actions. And so in the work that we will do to revise, it will be more towards making it a more restorative document, understanding that we do have some requirements for having those other consequences in there, but want to focus on making this a document that we can use to do those alternatives first and then move into those punitives if we have to.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I guess what my question is, and you may be just like too early in the looking into it to answer this, and that's fine, is I thought that's what we just did with the revised code of, like with this version. I thought that was sort of the work that we were doing with engaging schools, I thought would land us a document that in fact was restorative, and it sounds like you're seeing opportunity there where it is not as far along as it could be.
I think in the intent, it was to be very restorative. However, like you said, we are seeing opportunities. We can make it more of restorative practice. We do have a meeting with engaging schools to kind of go back, as Dr. Dre was saying, to get some historical information on what occurred. But we want to move away from this code of conduct, character, and support being a punitive document. More of it being something as a guide in which we can operate together, operate in unison, operate and teach our students. Here's a more restorative way, thinking about our panorama data. We have students who don't feel seen or heard, but yet we have this code document that historically marginalizes students. We must look at something different. And so there's an opportunity to really make a more restorative approach, and that's going to be our goal and plan, May 2023.
Well, great. Well, I just want to say fresh eyes, great, wonderful. I hope you find lots of opportunities to make it a more restorative document.
So with Bonnie?
Yeah, just, I have the board's been taught that in the MTSS structure that we're all committed to, that behavior comes first. Attendance and behavior come before learning comes. And there is the buzz around the district is that behavior's been, especially as students have come back to school from COVID, but behavior has been a problem. And it's not clear how rigorous the incident reporting has been or the interventions have been. And I was curious if there's any intention to bring a structured approach to behavioral intervention that's similar to the approach that we use around academics with tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 interventions. Will we have intervention plans for specific students, especially repeat offenders?
Absolutely. And actually, as you just asked that question, we are just completing a series with our staff, myself, Emily Myers, and Connie Crimmins on that tiered model. And so we did 3 weeks, and each week was a different tier and how we provide those interventions for those students in that way.
Wow, great, thank you.
All right. Just wanted to say again, welcome to both of y'all to the district. We are so excited you're here. Students, thank you so much for taking the time. Parents, you should be very proud. Thank y'all all for coming tonight. We look forward to hearing a lot more.
Okay, so next up, the next update will be from our curriculum and instruction team. And so they have a number of updates to present tonight. And so I'm going to invite Dr. Denise Green, our Chief Academic Officer, to kick off the next round of updates. Dr. Green.
So Dr. Felder, are we skipping over the finance and human capital oversight federal program request for new position? That's what
We're not skipping.
Okay.
I just thought we'd continue with the updates and then circle back to Ms. Rapp. Is that okay?
No problem. That's okay. I'm
right.
just looking from the agenda standpoint and
All
just
right.
want to make
My
sure we don't miss
apologies.
anything. No
Yep.
problem.
Well, it's always a delight to come before the board right here. So good evening, Chairman Atherton and Vice Chair Purcell and board members and Superintendent Dr. Felder. Coming behind our students here and thinking about their words, I think about a quote, an anonymous quote says, "If you're planning for a year, sow rice. If you're planning for a decade, plant trees. If you're planning for a lifetime, educate people." And so with that, the curriculum and instruction is all about educating people. Tonight, I have the pleasure of presenting, or members of my team, presenting just a few of their work this summer as they've been looking at curriculum, as they've been doing professional development, as they have been educating a lot of people and planning for this year. So with me this evening, I have Ms. Amber Wilson, Executive Director of Literacy, and Ms. Emily Lewis, English Language Development Facilitator. They will share with you the new literacy curriculum. We've all been very excited about that process. They will share the why, the procurement process, stakeholder feedback, part of the implementation, and the next steps. Along with an update on the curriculum, you will also hear information around the English language learners and the newcomers. And as part of that, an update on the language instruction educational plan, the Ready, Set, Go newcomer kits that will include information about the curriculum as well as professional development opportunities. So at this time, I would like to bring forth Ms. Amber Wilson, who's going to share with you about the new ELA curriculum. We'll pause and have Q&A, and then following that, Ms. Lewis will share with you about the ELL and newcomer information.
All right, good evening. It is a pleasure to be back in front of you again. I feel like it's been a bit. But tonight we're going to talk a little bit about this journey that we've been on with literacy, right? We've talked a lot. We've done a lot of work over the past year, couple of years. And so if we can, do I have control of the slides? Fantastic. Okay, that could be a little scary though. So we have been on a journey here with literacy over the past year. And as you know, we have focused on foundational reading skills. We've really doubled down on foundational reading here. We've implemented Heggerty in all of our pre-K through second grade classrooms across the district, and that has been in an effort to ensure that we had systematic and direct phonological awareness instruction occurring for all students. Additionally, we added Bridge the Gap, which is part of the Heggerty curriculum suite, to close gaps for our older students who are still struggling with some of the most foundational literacy skills and aspects of learning to read. For phonics, we have built capacity with our teachers using Letterland in grades pre-K through second by ensuring that all staff who were previously not trained did receive that training this year. And to ensure that phonics instruction was transferred to text, we also did professional development on decodable readers that were, and that professional development was provided to all K-1 teachers, literacy coaches in each of our elementary schools, reading interventionists. Additionally, we added from phonics to reading in all of our third grade classrooms, and at some schools that was also added to fourth grade, depending on the gaps that were existing with phonics skills in their data. It was critical that in order for us to continue to move any further in our literacy work as an organization, that we built a solid understanding of the science of reading. But also in that work, we had to ensure the impact of our instructional approaches and make sure that teachers understood that when they make decisions around instruction in a classroom, it does determine success of students. Professional development was done with all district leadership, each elementary school, literacy coaches and interventionists, and the Student Achievement Committee of the board last year. Additionally, OCS started our journey with letters back in January. We have 5 state cohorts in letters, and we also have 1 district paid cohort to ensure that everyone who needed this knowledge has access to the training course. This summer, we have worked to develop core instructional frameworks and curriculum maps, and those are going to be rolled out this fall as we get started. These were created in collaboration with teachers, literacy coaches, administrators, and district level C&I staff. Additionally, as the professional development calendar for this school year was drafted and leadership agendas have been drafted for this year, the team prioritized developing a culture of instructional leadership for each site by prioritizing learning walks, walk-through tool alignment, and including principles and curricular decisions that are made for their site. Principals also will have the opportunity to engage in data analysis, reflection, and planning with their tier-like teams and district-level support as we go throughout the year at leadership meetings. As you also recall, we conducted a literacy audit during the past year, which confirmed many of our focus areas that we have already identified and begun to work on here in OCS. The priorities of this audit were considered in writing the RFP for the new literacy curriculum to ensure that we were aligned with research-based literacy non-negotiables that are aligned with the science of reading. So here you have the why. Why do we need new literacy curriculum? That has been a question that has surfaced across our district during the past few months. As you can see, there is an urgency here in OCS to ensure that our curriculum is aligned with the science of reading, as we want to ensure the success of each and every learner in our classrooms, that they have the opportunity to learn to read. The TNTP audit that was conducted during the past year raised some concerns that we needed to consider, most of which we were already aware of and addressing in our work. But our student reading data, K through 12, also showed us that we need to adopt a new comprehensive curriculum that centers on the learning needs of our diverse student population with a focus on scaffolding and access to engaging grade level text. So I want to walk you through an overview, really high level, of the procurement process that has been followed over the past few months. So an Rfp team, which included administrators, literacy coaches, teachers, district leaders, and parents that represented various populations of our school system, came together to be on the Rfp team. We originally posted the RFP and received insufficient responses. Therefore, we had to go back, talk to vendors, and figure out some of the leading vendors and figure out why they weren't responding. We made minor adjustments to the RFP, made sure that the posting was made very prevalent, put it out on more sites, and then with the second posting that closed on May 5th, we did receive 9 submissions. The OCS literacy team reviewed and scored every vendor against the IMET tool, which is very comprehensive if you haven't ever reviewed it. 7 of our vendors met the RFP specifications according to the IMET tool, and those were then carried forth to the RFP team. The RFP team then reviewed all 7 vendors using an in-depth rating system with the rubric for evaluating reading language arts, instructional material tools. That has a lot of overlap with IMET. It's a little less comprehensive, but the RFP team also had access to the IMET ratings. And that latter tool that I mentioned does come out of the Florida Center for Reading Research. On June 10th, the RFP team voted, on the final 4 vendors to move forward in the process. Those final 4 vendors were Benchmark Advance, Into Reading and Into Literature, which is a Houghton Mifflin Harcourt product, Wit and Wisdom, which is by Great Minds, and Wonders Study Sync. On June 24th, all 4 vendors were presented. They came in person and presented to the RFP team, and they brought materials to be reviewed by that team with their representatives. June 27th through 30th, all 4 vendor curriculum materials were displayed at Cedar Ridge for our internal and external stakeholders to provide feedback to. As you can see, on June 30th through July 8th, the window was provided for OCS staff to also provide review via an online tool, and they also came to Cedar Ridge. And then on July 12th, the RFP team voted on 1 curriculum to advance to the superintendent for approval. We did ensure throughout this process that the feedback of our internal stakeholders as well as our external stakeholders were included. It was important that we elevated the voices of everyone as we came to the table to make this decision. Teachers who came to review curriculum products obviously were looking through a very, very different lens than parents who were coming to look at products. But it was important that every voice that came, whether they came in person or whether they came virtually, felt valued and had a way to get their voice to the table to the RFP team. When we had the materials set up at Cedar Ridge in the Media Center, we had OCS administrators, literacy coaches, and teachers who all came to provide feedback during the course of that week. We hosted a separate session in the evening for parents and community as well. We were pleasantly surprised to see so many K-8 teachers, principals, community members come out and want to engage in this process. We even had some PLC teams show up as a team. They came to sit together, to review every material together, to talk about the good, the bad, what they were thinking. They engaged Mariah and I in those conversations, and it was really powerful to have the opportunity to do that. Not everyone chose to complete the form that came in person. Others chose to provide their feedback virtually, and then others chose to have sidebar conversations with myself, Mariah, or they just wanted to come see the materials but chose not to leave their input with us. And all of those options were possible. No one was required to do anything. So the recommendation for the new curriculum was taken to Dr. Felder. The RFP team voted to recommend Houghton Mifflin Harcourt into reading for grades K through 5 and Houghton Mifflin Harcourt into literature for grades 6 through 12. I'm sorry, 6 through 8. That is a typo on that slide. Does it say 6?
No, 6 to
This
8.
one's correct, mine is wrong. Perfect. Awesome. So just an overview, this is not all the nuts and bolts that you're probably going to want to know about the curriculums, and we can definitely set up a time for you to have a more thorough presentation to understand everything if that is the desire of the board. This is just a kind of overview, bullet points that you can peruse at your leisure, but we wanted to include those here. So for Interreading K-5, I'll highlight a couple things. This is science-backed instruction that is aligned with the science of reading. You will notice that Arriba la Lectura is the Spanish version, and it's super exciting to me that this is not a Spanish translation of an English language arts curriculum. This is a Spanish language arts curriculum that dovetails beautifully alongside the ELA version on the English classroom. So I'm super excited for the dual language program to have a Spanish language arts curriculum designed to support them. And also the materials with Into Reading and Into Literature come translated in 108 languages within the platform if they're accessing the digital component. Cultural relevant text, authentic true voice authors are part of this work. Students will also have the opportunity to annotate and engage with the text right there. They have the text to then take into their own homes. Teachers will have choice, even though there are some classroom book sets. Teachers will have choice in helping us determine how we use those book set points for which text novels they want to have in their classrooms. But then there's also, I think it's 90 novel sets and Into Literature that are actually available to teachers via the online platform as well. It also allows for student choice as they are working through text. There are times when the text is dictated with grade level core instruction to ensure that all of our students are exposed to grade level text. But then there's also opportunity for a student to have some choice in the text that they're reading within the parameters that the teachers have established. So I won't read all those bullets to y'all. All right, so another key point that I want to highlight here is that both Into Reading and Into Literature have top-rated scores by Ed Reports. Additionally, both are state-approved Science of Reading aligned ELA curriculum choices that are negotiated on the state contract for pricing. Into Reading meets expectations at all gateways for every grade level, K through 6, even though we're only utilizing it K through 5. And Into Literature also meets expectations at all grade levels for every grade, 6 through 12, even though we're utilizing it 6 through 8. Here you can see that we had a wide variety of school staff who provided feedback. It was important to the review team that the voices of teachers and school-based staff were heard in the review process and vendor options, as they are the ones that sit in the classrooms every day on the front lines, utilizing the resources to design instruction for our students. So in the next slides, I'm going to highlight just a couple of the data points for you with a few of the questions that were completed and some of the comments of the review team. Here you can see the data around foundational reading skills. So into reading and into literature is the bar that is circled there. The orange bar represents excellence. So when teachers and principals, internal candidates were asked, how would you rate this curriculum in terms of foundational skills? These were the results that were received. When we asked them to rate the curriculums in terms of reading comprehension skills, these are the results there as well. The next data point here is how inclusive and representative of the diverse student population here in Orange County schools is the curriculum. And those results are noted here. And the next couple slides are the comments that we received from the Rfp team on Into Reading. So there's a lot on these slides. Again, I'm not going to read them all to you, but I wanted to ensure that you had access to them for you to review. To see some highlights that I will say is that they were very impressed by the foundational skills, systematic instruction being very explicit, that students had access to authentic text. It was very appealing to have a curriculum that would vertically align across units, but also from K-5 to 6-8. Teachers are challenged at times to find resources to fill gaps for students. And if they have access to curriculum within the platform for all grade spans, then it's easier for them to address the way that the curriculum is vertically aligned. So there's just some big highlights. Same thing here with Into Lit. Those are some of the comments that were received, again, for your perusal. And I do want to take the opportunity to just say thank you to our Rfp team members who served. They met after school, they met some in the summer, they met, anytime that we needed. They completed lots of rating forms to ensure that they were able to get their voice heard and gave their feedback, and they talked to their PLC members and brought their voices to the table. They recruited people to come and see the materials and just have honest, raw, real conversations about where do we go next here in Orange County schools. So I do feel confident that we have heard many voices of our teachers, our principals, literacy leaders that live in schools every day, and some of our parents and community members as well. So thank you to each of them for their engagement in this process. So in terms of implementation and next steps, the final implementation plans are not developed, as this is a brand new, in terms of like contract and getting that process done. So we have met with HMH to determine the availability of resources as late as today, to try to get an understanding of what is our timeline for implementation. It will be critical moving forward that we utilize lessons learned from schools that have previously implemented, as well as consider our own lessons learned from implementations with Hegarty, Decodables, and Science of Reading professional development this past year. We want to also ensure that we engage principals, teachers, and literacy coaches in the next steps planning. We will not move forward with implementation plans that do not incorporate their voices to ensure that the plan that we're proposing fits into our teachers' classrooms. There is an urgency in this work, but we also have to stay rooted in implementation science and understand the culture in which we're trying to move this. Sometimes we have to go slow to go fast, but also for our students' sake, we have to stay true to this work. And so I wanted to assure you of that as we begin kind of the next steps with implementation planning. And before, go ahead.
There's also a desire to make sure that there is integration of this work with what's already there. So going slow to go fast is an important piece in making sure that what is put forth also aligns with what's already there. So people do not feel overwhelmed, feel stressed about the new curriculum. But as you can see, we're very excited about it. The team did a very robust job in making sure they covered all the pieces and providing feedback, and that we have something that we will be very proud about and that you should feel very proud about.
So before I ask you if you have questions and feedback, because I'm sure you don't have any, I wanted to make sure that I took this opportunity to also share a couple things with you. Orange County Schools is on the radar here in our state for the work that we've done around foundational literacy skills. So the literacy team here we've been invited to represent Orange County Schools in speaking at the Ames conference this year, as well as the Literacy for Leaders conference on behalf of DPI, and Dr. Felder has granted us permission to go and do that. So we're excited to go and share some of the work and some of the impact that that's having on student achievement. And the fact that DPI sees what's happening here speaks highly of the work that our teachers are doing every day. So thank you for your continued support. And I'm also super excited to tell you that we're gonna get somebody else on our team. So there is an early literacy specialist position that is being funded through DPI that will be coming to us. This will be a recurring position, but one that is constantly under revision and tweaks and changes as we're gonna kind of develop this as we go. An article came out today with EdNC, and I will make sure that that link is in your board weekly update for your review. But if you have any questions about that position, I'm happy to try to answer those as well. All right.
We will pause for any questions for the curriculum before we bring on Ms. Lewis to talk about the ELL and newcomer.
Sarah?
First of all, I just want to say I'm so excited that you're at this point. Your team has been working incredibly hard to build this work. I'm really glad to hear that it's starting to be recognized. And I know we have not looked at official M-class results, but we looked at a little preliminary stuff in the student achievement meeting, and then the statewide results came out, and I was like, oh, I think we have higher growth than the statewide average. So
we might, just maybe.
I'm excited to look at that too when we get to whatever the point is where we're looking at that. But thank you. It's an incredible amount of work, so thank you for making so much progress so quickly. I also heard very positive things about the curriculum mapping process from some teachers who were involved in that, who just really loved that opportunity and felt really good about that work. So I know a lot of people were involved in that. That's fabulous. And I'm excited that we've landed here. The into reading and into literature, I was, like doing my own research about them online, and there are a bunch of states that do their own ratings in addition to ed reports that do ratings of curricula. So like Louisiana, Mississippi, Massachusetts, Colorado, there might've been another one I looked at, but I looked at their ratings of these programs, and it's rated way high on all of these good science of reading things. So really, really excited about that. One question that I have for you, the writing component. So I saw in the contract, I think that we're just getting, I think it's called Writable or something for the middle school, but not for the younger grades. And so can you just into reading has a writing component? I think we have real opportunities as a district in writing instruction. And so just curious how this will support that and whether we had thought about getting the Writable for 3 through 5.
So that's a really good question. Thank you. And I appreciate all of the positive feedback about the other work. Writable actually starts in 3rd grade. And there are other writing components outside of even just the writable part that are part of into reading and into literature. And we will also be looking at how this dovetails with the work in Think Circa for our middle schools and high schools as well.
Cool. You might want to, on the contract, I thought I saw it say 6 through 8 for writable, so you might want to just double check that. I may have been misreading that, but awesome.
Thank you.
Other questions?
I'd just like to say thank you. It appears that you have done a tremendous amount of work here, which I'm not surprised at all. But it appears that the work has paid off with the community and with the principals and with the teachers, and that if you don't have buy-in from those, you're not going to have anything. And bringing all those people together was genius. And I think that you have put together something that's going to be very good for our students. So
Thank you so much.
And I love the enthusiasm. It's nice to see somebody
I do love what I do.
excited about their job.
Thank you.
Carrie?
Just really quickly want to echo the thanks, because there's just been this great presentation of the quality of the work and the quality of the focus on early literacy, and then really pleased to see just what seems like the best example of how the process should look with stakeholders and the planning of the rollout, even before the rollout. All of that is so important, and I just applaud that you all got that really well done.
Thank you so much.
Bonnie?
Yeah, I'll echo the thanks for the work. It sounds great. I have two questions. One is, it's a really big effort, obviously, to take this on. Is your team going to visit any schools that are using these products and actually talk to them about how they implemented what went?
We actually have already went on 2 visits.
Oh, wow.
To go see 2 different schools down in the Moore County area. And then I've also had our HMH representative connect us with some other districts that are our size, our demographics, that, some that have been super, super successful, but then I also want to talk to those that had some challenges so I can learn from that process. So we are on that, Ms. Hauser. Thank you for that question.
That is fantastic. That really raises my confidence way up. Any idea roughly about timing and phasing? Is this something that's going to happen this year? Is this something that's
Yes, ma'am. It is going to happen really quickly in terms of how fast we're going to be able to get materials here. I'm really hesitant to say a date right now because it would be forever in the universe, and I don't want to jinx it. But I will tell you that it could be as early as the end of August that we may be able to have materials here.
2 weeks?
I'm just going to say that.
Okay.
I will keep you posted, though.
And just related phasing, is everybody, do we do everybody?
We will develop that implementation plan with teachers and principals and literacy leaders across the district, because we want to make sure that we're hearing all perspectives before we make those decisions.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, I just had 2 questions, and first and foremost, thank you for all the hard work on it. It's so good to hear how inclusive this was and engaging in all the results. Can you share who was on the RFP team? You mentioned it a few times, but I didn't see actually who it was.
So it was, I wrote a list down for myself so I didn't mess it up somewhere. It was on one of those first slides. Principals, here we go. It was administrators, literacy coaches, teachers, district leaders, and then we also had 3 parent representatives on that team.
Okay.
It was, I think there was 16 people total on that RFP team.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yes, sir.
The second question I had is, I saw how the payments were broken up into a schedule, and the largest payment being the first one, of course. So what happens after 5 years if we keep going with them? Does it start over with the same initial payment, or do we know?
Yes, so I didn't ask past year 5. I'm just going to be honest with you. My assumption would be as we go. So year 1 incorporates the professional development. So there's a lot of services, but then you also have the goods that are non-consumable. So part of Into Reading and Into Literature is the consumable aspect, so students can touch, feel, take home, interact with the text. They're bound, authentic text. But then there's also components that live in the classroom with classroom libraries and novel sets and all of those things. So if we were to extend beyond the 5 years, my assumption would be, 1, we would want to ensure that we still had the most update version of the curriculum, correct? And that we were still aligned to the best research possible. We could potentially keep the materials that we had in place we would want to sustain our professional learning, and we're going to have to do that as we go anyway, to ensure that anybody that we onboard is brought on with the same quality professional development and attention to get started with success. So that year 6 plan could incorporate all of those different components. And at this point, seeing that far in the future, I would be really hesitant to say, but I think, we would have to just be mindful that we would then be looking at a 5-year-old curriculum, 5-year-old text. A lot can happen in that time.
Yeah, if I could just echo what Amber just said, best practices every 5 to 6 years, you want to pause and reassess your instructional materials and such. So we wouldn't want to go beyond 5 years at this point.
No, I appreciate the context. I've just hadn't seen a contract that explains what happens after the renewal. That was just strange to me. So
we didn't even talk about it.
That's okay. That's okay. You're right. 5 years is a long time, but I was just curious because it wasn't explicit in the contract. Thank you.
Yes, and I should also take the opportunity to thank Ms. Rath, because she provided me a ton of guidance and to make sure that as we went through the contract process that I was dotting all of my I's and crossing all of my T's. And she was a thought partner for me at every corner where I wasn't sure what was going to be there waiting for me. So thank you to Ms. Rath and Dr. Felder as well.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right. I also, as the literacy director, have the opportunity, sorry, I'm going to introduce her. It's
well,
okay.
That's all right. I'm just going to say, hey, all right to my team right here, because you can see that they dot the I's and cross the T's on everything. So we do look forward to a wonderful implementation of the curriculum, and we'll come back and provide you updates on that. So now you can introduce your team.
Perfect.
All right.
So as the literacy executive director of literacy, I also have the opportunity to support Emily Lewis with all of our teachers that work with our multilingual learners and our newcomers here in the district. So I'm excited that she is here tonight to share with you a lot of the work that she has led that I just have the opportunity to get to support. So off to you, Ms. Lewis.
Thank you. So good evening. It is nice to see you all in person. The last time I think I spoke with the board, I was behind a Zoom box on the computer screen. So it's nice to see all of your faces here today. And thank you for inviting me to share about the work that we're doing with our multilingual learners, specifically our population of students who are considered newcomers. So I want to start, just to make sure everyone's on the same page, by explaining exactly who are we talking about when we're mentioning this group of students called multilingual newcomers. So the U.S. Department of Education defines newcomers as any foreign-born student and their families who have recently arrived in the United States. So these students can include a multitude of different groups that we have immigrating into our country. A few listed here on the screen for you: asylees, English learners. In North Carolina, we are now coining the term multilingual learner, so you will hear us start to transition our language from English learner to multilingual learner. Foreign-born, sometimes we refer to our students that way. Children who are identified as immigrant children and youth through Title III, and specifically those are students ages 3 to 21 who are not born in any U.S. state or Puerto Rico. So any student between the ages of 3 and 21 born outside of the United States or Puerto Rico and have been attending a U.S. school for less than 3 years. So specifically, when we're talking about our multilingual newcomers in Orange County schools, we're talking about this group of students who are between the ages of 3 and 21, born outside of the United States, and have been in U.S. schools less than 3 years. These students also include our refugee students, students who are what we refer to as SLIFE students. So they're students with limited or interrupted formal education. And then our unaccompanied youth who are relocated to live with a family member after they have entered our country. So I have a breakdown here for you, just so you know, in our district, who are we talking about when we refer to this population of students? So the first breakdown you will see in the pie chart is by grade level band. So approximately 33.9 of our English learners in grades K through 5, or our newcomer multilingual learners are in grades 3 through 5. About 21%, just slightly over 21%, are in our middle schools, grades 6 through 8. And then almost 45% of our newcomers are in high school. I also have a bar graph there that shows the breakdown per school, and you will see the majority of our multilingual newcomers are enrolled at Cedar Ridge and Orange High schools. Currently, Cedar Ridge has about 15 newcomer students enrolled. Does not include any who have enrolled for this coming school year yet, because we have not done language proficiency testing on those students yet. And then we have 10 students who are enrolled at Orange High School who receive newcomer services as well. I will tell you that most of our newcomers do qualify as 9th graders because they often come over the age of 15. They have not graduated from high school in their home country, but they often do not come to us with proof of schooling credits. Without that transcript, it is very difficult for us to assign them credits from their home country. So therefore, they are put in as a 9th grader because in our high schools, you have to matriculate grades based on the number of credits you've earned. However, I do work on analyzing international transcripts whenever we do have families that are able to provide those educational records, so we can try to enroll those students in the appropriate grade level based off of schooling they have done in their home country. Most importantly, you'll see a little blurb at the top of this slide. Out of our entire multilingual learner population, newcomers make up about 7% of those students. And out of our entire Orange County Schools student population, our newcomers represent less than 1% of our student population. We have approximately 56 students currently identified as multilingual newcomers. So each year, as a requirement of Title III, we are required to submit what is called a Language Instruction Educational Plan, or the LIEP. The LIEP includes the criteria for tiering our students who are identified as multilingual learners, and then it also includes the services for each of those tiers of students. In late May, we were required to submit our plan for this school year to DPI to be approved. We received approval in mid-July, and it is now ready to be uploaded as part of our Title III federal grant through the CCIP. So on the screen before you, the section that is circled, comprehensive language services, that is where the majority of our newcomer multilingual students would fall in our LIEP. These are students that when they are assessed for their English language proficiency on our annual access testing, they score mostly a level 1 or level 2 out of 6 levels on the 4 domains of listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Additionally, these students are 3 years or less in U.S. schools. They need substantial support in their core classrooms in order to be able to successfully perform at grade level. So this next slide has the services for each of these different levels. Again, we're going to focus in on the comprehensive language services, and I'm going to share with you some changes that are highlighted on your screen for you between last year's LIEP and this year's LIEP as we are trying to strengthen the support that we're providing these newcomers. So first, you will see that services will be delivered daily during the school day by certified ESL teachers in a separate setting for a minimum of 225 minutes per week That equates to approximately 45 minutes per day of explicit pull-out English language instruction, which is an increase from last year's requirement of 90 to 150 minutes per week. We also made a change from allowing pull-out or small group instruction for our newcomers to the option of one of those to being a non-negotiable that a newcomer will have pull-out direct explicit ESL instruction for at least 45 minutes per day. You will also see I highlighted something under the next column where it says supportive language services. I know it's hard to see because there's a lot that fits in that chart. But what I highlighted are the words sheltered instruction. So although sheltered instruction will benefit our more intermediate students, it will also benefit our newcomer students. And I'm happy to say that at least for the first time in my tenure here in the district, that Orange High School has a duly certified ESL social studies teacher who is going to be able to offer a sheltered world history course and a sheltered American history course. When I say sheltered, I mean because he is duly certified, students will take world history from their ESL teacher and receive explicit language instruction and receive their world history credit that is required for graduation. Same thing for American history. So we're excited that we have the opportunity to add that to Orange High School for this school year, and we're hoping that in the future, we will have more duly certified teachers in our ESL program so we can expand these sheltered courses across many of our schools. This past year, we purchased a new curriculum called Ready, Set, Go Newcomer. These are kits that come kind of ready-made in a box for our teachers. They are appropriate for grades 3 through 12 because those are the grade levels that most of our newcomers are enrolled in. They integrate all 4 of the language domains into every lesson. Listening, speaking, reading, and writing are a focus of every single lesson. These lesson plans provide opportunities for differentiation and modification based off of each student's individual needs. So we were excited to receive or be able to purchase this curriculum last year. It did not arrive until about halfway through the year. So our teachers did receive some training around how to use this with their students, and some schools began implementing quite well. Because it was a mid-year arrival, it was difficult to really start implementing across the board with fidelity. So we will continue professional development on this curriculum this year and really do a lot of fidelity checks to make sure that our newcomer curriculum is being implemented to the best of our ability so that we can serve our students appropriately. This curriculum includes content that not only develops vocabulary for life skills, but also academic vocabulary that's necessary for success in core content classes. And then lastly, well, actually, I'm going to add one more thing. Amber mentioned curriculum mapping. So I want to add on to that with the curriculum mapping efforts this summer, we actually provided some language supports written into the curriculum maps for regular content teachers to use for students, newcomers through our more advanced English learners. For our rollout when school starts in August with the curriculum maps, we will have language supports written in place for classroom teachers to implement for K-5 math, K-5 science, 6-8 science, 9-12 history, and 9-12 English. Throughout the year, it is our hope that as we meet with our ESL PLC, that we will continue to write language supports for the content and grade levels that we were not able to get to this summer. This is exciting because we actually have new English language development standards that are also rolling out as we start the school year this month. And so my teachers have started training around those new standards. And the way that North Carolina has provided our unpacking documents, they have shown this like seamless blend of here's the language development standard and here is how it fits into, say, a 5th grade science classroom. So we were able to kind of seamlessly provide supports for content area teachers to use even when an ESL teacher is not available to co-teach with them. So that's exciting, and I think our teachers are going to be excited to have that at their fingertips. So lastly, I want to share with you some professional development efforts that we have planned for this school year. So we will provide district-wide professional learning for our English language development specialists around the new standard course of study and specially designed instruction. So that would include co-teaching, especially for our middle and high school ESL teachers and their core content teachers that they are partnered with, formative assessment and data collection, and the MTSS process specifically for multilingual learners, because oftentimes we're seeing that our teachers are having a hard time kind of pinpointing, are our students struggling due to their language, or are they struggling because of some other reason? So we're going to do a lot of work specifically around the MTSS process with multilingual learners. And then for our school-based professional learning initiatives, we're going to do training at some of our higher needs, larger population EL schools or ML schools around sheltered instruction observation protocol, commonly known as SIOP. SIOP is a research-based instructional model that has proven effective in addressing the academic needs of English learners and all students in a classroom with a SIOP trained teacher. So there are 8 interrelated components of SIOP that include lesson preparation, building a student's background knowledge, comprehensible input, strategies, interaction, practice and application, lesson delivery, and review and assessment. And I'm happy to say that in my previous life, before I came to the bright side in Orange County, I was a SIOP coach and spent many years supporting and coaching teachers who are going through this training. So I'm excited that we are bringing it to Orange County schools, and I'm going to be able to support that work here. And then we also are going to provide PD at some of our schools around strategies for providing equitable access to the academic curriculum and language strategies that are specific to the math classroom. So Jennifer Parker, our pre-K-12 math facilitator, and I are going to work together to begin implementing that PD K-12 based on needs at different schools. All right. So that was a real quick run through, but if you have questions or feedback.
Any questions, Bonnie?
Well, Terry can go first.
Okay, thanks, Bonnie. Yeah, I thank you so much for this presentation. I learned so much just reading the abstract and trying to learn all those acronyms.
My team is extremely excited. Can you feel that excitement?
We love our jobs.
It's so important, and some of this information has just been new to me in the past year. So it sounds like if we have 56 newcomers and they're 7% of our MLs, we have about 800 MLs in OCS.
That's correct.
And that's more than 10% of our student population.
Yes.
And I did have a specific question about Ready, Set, Go.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that teachers doing the pullouts only use? So it's not something a classroom teacher will incorporate?
No, it is. So during that pull-out English instruction time from an ESL specialist, they will implement using the Ready, Set, Go curriculum.
Thank you.
Bonnie?
So thank you for this. You know, who would have expected that the program was so rich, and so thank you for that. It's quite reassuring as our multilingual population is growing.
Oh, growing exponentially.
Really growing. So thank you for that. I'm so sorry that you missed our community engagement meeting. I think it was in June, because there was some conversation that was really important that's not really covered in the curriculum, and I would call it the entry-level program, for people who are, and they were talking about students that come in that are new to the United States. They're coming from one-room schoolhouses. Some are suffering the trauma of coming in. Is Dr. Dreyer here? So we need the SEL folks here. But it's a huge shift.
Correct.
And they're thrown into a building and 45 minutes of instruction a day that's not what this is about. This is about how do you go to a school where you're in different classes every hour and everybody speaks a different language. And I wonder, are we doing anything for that entry-level piece, for that? I don't know what you want to call it. I think maybe it's newcomer with a little n, or, but it's a little different than it's the beginning. It's the beginning.
No, I know it's day one, we're brand new. This looks different than anything I've ever been to before, right?
My family's never seen it either.
Correct. So fortunately, this past year, we were able to host our first newcomer family night in the fall, the first one that had been held here in about 10 years within the district. So Amber and I actually met today, and we're already starting to plan ahead so we can bring families in. During that time, we actually worked with our family liaisons, and our ESL specialists prepared presentations about this is what a U.S. school is about. This is what your day looks like, depending on whether your student is in kindergarten or in high school. What does it mean? What does my kid have to do to show success in a classroom? What does it mean or how do they have to get lunch every day? How do they get to school? How do they get home? What materials do they need? How do I contact a teacher if the teacher doesn't speak my language? So we provided a lot of that information through the newcomer night, and we hope to implement not one of those this year, but multiple, so we can actually get families as they come into our district. We know that we have a pretty big rush, right here at the beginning of the school year, and then again in January. So if we can host a beginning of the year and then a beginning of second semester time for those families, that's a start. This Ready, Set, Go curriculum, we are actually very fortunate. Although it's a brief amount of time that those students would be pulled out using that curriculum, it starts with, let's take a walk around the school and get to know, this is my principal, this is my principal's name, this is what my principal does. Here's my media specialist, this is what a media specialist does. So it starts from the very basic social skills that students are going to need to know. How do I ask for a piece of paper or to sharpen my pencil? It starts with that before it builds into the academic language. I think it's about a crash course, and I think it's 6 to 8 weeks, and kind of really focusing on those social skills that are needed. And then it moves into the more incorporating more academically rich vocabulary.
So would our new students all go through that?
Yes.
Wow, that's great.
At least in grades 3 through 12. So our kindergarten, first, and second graders, although we do have 1 or 2 newcomers that come in those grade levels, for the most part, because they're all learning language at that age at about the same rate, they're not typically enrolled in a newcomer program or using a newcomer curriculum.
And this is new, we're just starting that this year? That's really impressive. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Other questions, Sarah?
Thank you so much for your work on this. That is really, really exciting. The daily separate setting, the change in the amount of time, and the fact that rather than sort of optional, it's required and it's pull out and all of that, seems like it's going to be a rich opportunity for progress in language development. I guess I'm curious, like, is that hard for a student's schedule to like make that happen, or for the school schedule?
So at the middle and high school level, it's not that difficult because they typically can, at the middle school level, their intervention block that's built into the day is usually when we can hold a newcomer class period. And then at the high school, we have a newcomer block built into the day. So high school students actually get 90 minutes a day for an entire year in a newcomer classroom. At the elementary level, it can be a little trickier because we have to make sure we're not pulling students out from core instruction. But again, most of our elementary school principals work with our ESL specialists to make sure that those newcomers can be pulled during an intervention time. And then they also receive support through what is often referred to as push-in or small group when the ESL teacher actually goes into the core classroom. So thank you.
I applaud your enthusiasm as well.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm really thrilled to hear about the program, but I'm especially grateful to hear what you're going to try to do with math, because there's a lot of reading in math, and a lot of times people don't understand how reading affects what you're learning in math. So I applaud you for pulling math into the picture and working with our students as they are newcomers and come into our school system. So thank you for thinking of the math piece of it.
Thank you. Well, math is an area that we don't often think language is as important, but it is. And we hear all the time that math is math, but when you study math across the world, you will discover that math is not math.
No, it's not. And as a former principal, I know that. And so I am very appreciative of your efforts to hone in on math.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Feller?
Thank you, Mr. Atherton. So next up will be updates on school readiness, and leading this portion of the agenda will be Mr. Dwayne Foster, the district's director for athletics, health, and operations. And Mr. Forster will introduce the team who will be joining him. Thank you, Mr. Forster.
Good evening, Chair Atherton, Vice Chair Purcell, members of the board, Dr. Felder. We've heard several times tonight alone, we're just a few weeks away. And that's the reality. We are just a couple of weeks away from the opening of school. And from an operations standpoint, we wanted to provide some school readiness updates in 3 areas: school nutrition, facilities, and transportation. They'll be giving some high-level updates on those areas. I want to thank these individuals. They're some of the most dedicated, hardworking, behind-the-scenes individuals I've worked with, and you know, they just roll their sleeves up and get it done. Doesn't matter what it is, they figure it out and get it done. And I'm always impressed with the work that they do from that standpoint. So up first, we'll have Sarah Pitts from School Nutrition.
Sorry. So good evening, everyone. Just a couple of updates. We all know that nutrition and learning are connected. At Orange County Schools, we're committed to providing our students with healthy, nutritious, and appealing meals to support their academic success. As a result of the USDA waiver, all students have been eating meals at no charge since 2020. Child nutrition programs across the country have to return to normal pre-pandemic procedures for the 22-23 school year, as the pandemic waivers have expired. So here's what our families can expect when they return to school. All students will be served meals through the cafeteria line or kiosk. Students will have to qualify for free or reduced price meals through an application or by direct certification. Students not approved for free or reduced meals will have to return to paying, meaning they will have to have cash or money in their accounts to pay for their meals. Anyone who would like assistance with completing their meal application can either contact the Child Nutrition Office or they can visit our tables, which will be located at their students' open house events. Menus are available on our website, but they are subject to change as we are still suffering some product availability. All meals will be compliant with nutrition standards for school meals established by the USDA. And parents need to know that at this time, there is a summer PEBT card which is available. They're available to students who were enrolled at Orange County Schools at the end of May last year, and they either had to have been approved for a free reduced price meal for the 21-22 school year, or they need to be approved for the upcoming school year by August 31st. So we are approving those applications daily, and again, if parents need assistance, they can come see us in the office, or we will be more than happy to set up a time with them. As far as our meal prices, universal breakfast will still be available to all elementary students, so they will have the opportunity to get a breakfast free of charge. And we just want parents to know that our meal prices for students will remain the same as they were in the 2019-2020 school year. So up next will be Mr. Mincy with Facilities and Maintenance.
All right, good evening. Good to see everyone. So first I want to start off by talking about staffing. Everybody knows that the construction industry has been plagued with shortcomings for finding employees. We've been very fortunate here lately. We have really recruited and hired some really good employees, so we're really excited about that. So it's good to have those vacancies filled. We still have a few, and we are interviewing and going to bring some more folks on, so that's a real plus. We also want to really thank the board for allowing the intern program this year. We had 2 awesome interns work with us this summer. Unfortunately, the third one didn't make the program, but we're really excited about that. It really worked. Rhonda Rath and Shannon Braxton and I are already working on potentially pushing that into the school year. I think there's an opportunity there, and so stoked about that. So thank you once again for that. So I'll say, as far as maintenance goes this summer, I will say we're doing solid work. I'll call it that. We have spent a tremendous amount of time on plumbing facilities, LED lighting upgrades, roofing repairs, parking lot paving, restriping on the outside for parking facilities. The list, you can see the list. It's pretty extensive. And our big focus, we're working towards the end of summer, we're pushing really hard. Central Elementary School was a really, really tough task this year. We removed the entire main switchgear for that campus. It was 60 years old. It was time for it to go. And we are near completion on that. That project has gone very well. So we hope to have the lights and the power back on in just a few days, which is awesome. And then River Park Elementary, we are pushing as hard as we can possibly push. All the HVAC equipment has arrived. It is on site. It is currently being installed. And we hope within just a few days, we'll have some nice cool air for the rest of summer and then heat for this fall. And then there are some delays on that problem. We also, just like child nutrition, the construction industry continues to be delayed on things like glazing products, aluminum framing for windows, a myriad of products are still delayed. So we've already been working with Mosley Architects, who is the architect for that project, and we have designed ways that we can work through the fall. Some of the project will need to continue past the start of school. So, but we think we have a good plan in place for that, and we've been working on that diligently. So I think that's pretty much everything that was on the slides to this point. So next up, I believe, is J.R. Albert.
Good evening. Hope everybody's doing well. I too am passionate and love what I do, but following Amber and her team, note to self, I might need to go before them next time. But highlights for transportation update is, okay. Thank you, Dwayne. Going the wrong way. Gotcha. There it is. Okay. Like I said, highlights, high spots for this update. The incentives, I think, is working. We're definitely getting more people in the door. It's just a long process to get them behind the wheel. But like I said, the incentives are definitely working. I see a lot of people in the district referring folks and things of that nature. It's sometimes looking for a unicorn to find a full-time driver. But we'll get one, we'll lose one, we'll get one, we'll lose one. So so the numbers right here show what our struggle is really right now with our number of drivers. And we have plenty of buses, just don't have the drivers for them right now. We're currently 11 drivers short to be able to sustain a full route without having support staff and things of that nature helping out to drive these buses like we did last year. I mean, it's one of those struggles that we've been in somehow, some way. My dedicated team just makes it happen. But it is a struggle, so please know that. I almost got asked to leave a restaurant the other week because I'm talking to people in line. I'm talking to the host. I start talking to the wait staff, and they frown upon when you go back in the kitchen. But I'm gonna find somebody that wants to drive a bus. But in all seriousness, I really do see a difference in the incentive part of it. And there's a couple things that I think that we could adjust and make it a little bit stronger too. The hourly wage and things of that nature. But I think like those are high spots. Thank you for your time. Does anybody have any questions for me?
I do. I just was curious, thank you,
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Albert. In our abstract, it mentioned that we have 67 buses. So does that mean we have 67, but we have 59 planned to use?
I forgot to mention that. I adjusted those numbers after the abstract had been sent out.
Okay.
Those are actual numbers there.
Okay, great.
I
Thank you.
apologize.
Sarah and then Ian?
I mean, this has been an ongoing challenge, and I just want to thank you for your leadership of the department through it. I know we are going to figure out how to get those, or you're going to figure out how to get those drivers. If there's anything we can do to help, please let us know. But yeah, I'm just grateful for things like the call center and, the start of school. This is probably a good opportunity to remind people, like the start of school, there are delays on the roads. There's, there's all kinds of things that are still being worked out. So yeah, just gratitude for having something like the call center so that families can get responses kind of quickly. So thank you.
Yeah.
Just thank you all. I know you've been working hard all summer, and I know that you're trying very hard to get ready for the last few days. Been there and done that, and I know that those buses are gonna roll, and we're gonna hope they're all gonna be on time, and
Yes, ma'am.
parents are not gonna be having to worry about where the kids are, and I know y'all are working to get all that done. So thank you all for everything you've done, because I know you work hard. No question about it.
And we want to
Thank you
get
all
you
for the
out of here, because I know you got to get up in a few hours.
Yes, I appreciate that. Any more questions?
I just got one more thing to add. I appreciate what you're doing.
Yes, sir.
And I can relate to that because I've always kept my CDLs current since 1999. And if I could, I would.
Just write that down. He needs to speak to you after the meeting.
But yes, that is super important. Bus
What are you
drivers are
doing
very,
on August the 29th, sir?
bus drivers are very special people.
Yes, sir.
And I think looking at that hourly wage is something that we need to, at some point, take a look at. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just one more quick thing. I believe we had some student interns in our maintenance department, and
We had some in transportation as well.
okay, good. I was wondering about that. That was my
We-
question. So
we
so
had
glad
two
about
as
that.
well, and
Okay.
they done very, very well, very well. That I can say without question that they went home tired.
Yeah.
They got their hands dirty. They got to see it, touch it. It was cool. Yeah, it was a good thing.
I just wanted to thank Dr. Felder and Rhonda and Shannon Braxton for pushing that through. We've had a lot of discussion in the budget committee about doing it, and it was something that we used to have, went away, and we brought it back, and I just think it's a wonderful program. and it will grow our own, if you will, in these areas. So thank you all for engaging this so much.
And one thing that I was amazed at my staff of their reaction. It wasn't just, I hadn't thought of that through the process. I was really excited to have their help, but I just did not realize how my staff would react to them, and a lot of times the excitement of having them there. So it was a win all around.
That's right. That's great. Fantastic. Sarah?
Can I just do one more add on in addition to this program? Sarah, thank you for the tables at the open houses also. I know whatever we can do to get those applications up and people filling them out, so appreciate your team doing that.
Also be in the Athlete Community Center block party.
Awesome.
Good. This Saturday.
They're going to be at the Eflin Community Center block party if anyone is listening to this meeting.
Great.
I know you're not on a mic. Okay.
Are you working with the Family Success Alliance on this? Yeah, they have really good, strong outreach into the communities that we want to get to. It'd be worth a conversation. There'll probably be some people there on Saturday. If I see them, I'll introduce you. But you can, no bus drivers. Maybe, I shouldn't say, come on out, Larry.
Thank you all. And to piggyback on Vice Chair Purcell's thought about the bus rolling, we're going to keep the bus pushing and rolling as we head towards the opening of school and being ready to go.
I know you are.
Thanks so much.
Thank y'all.
Thank y'all for all you do.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Atherton. All right, so next up will be our Finance and Human Capital team to come forth, and they are going to present on a request for a new position, a position to provide oversight of federal programs. And leading that discussion will be Ms. Rhonda Rath, Chief Finance Officer, and Mrs. Joyce Hatcher, Chief of Human Capital.
All right, good evening, everyone. We're here this evening to talk with you about bringing back a position that we did once have in the district, a federal programs director who had oversight of all of the federal grants. Our recommendation here for this position, as you have seen in the job description that was included in the abstract, will be a little bit more encompassing than just the federal programs. It will also be any other grant opportunities or any other magnets should we venture into that at a later date. We have seen a dramatic increase in the federal funds that are available to Orange County schools. We've gone from approximately 4 million to roughly 16 million that has become available to us in the last 5 to 7 years. What that looks like is the federal programs has been accustomed to 9 categories, for lack of a better term. In the early 5 years, we were only looking at 9 sources of funding. We have gone from 9 to over 30. And as a result of that, we've also had an increase in the reporting and compliance with our external counterparts. Most of our federal grants have always flowed through the Department of Public Instruction. With COVID, the funds are flowing to us from other sources, which lead us to have other reporting requirements outside of just the Department of Public Instruction. Also, as we've talked about before with federal, there is a much larger and more comprehensive component for compliance and reporting that we don't experience in any of our other funding sources. And DPI is structured to flow all of that information through one single point of contact. Their federal programs department at the DPI level is very small, and they don't have the capability or the manpower to be reaching out to several different points of contact. And this is also a standard position in all school districts. What we would like to get to is a single point of contact for all of our grants and for our federal programs in particular with the level of funds that we are dealing with. A single point for completing the applications, a single point to work with the various department heads within Orange County Schools on compliance, also on accountability, and also on reporting. We feel strongly that once we have a single point of contact, we can have visibility of where we could be utilizing some of our federal funds in a different manner than we are now and actually maximize them greater. So I will open it up for questions, but our recommendation is to ask for the creation of a federal programs director position that would be funded utilizing the administrative portion of federal grants that are available to the district, as well as the indirect costs that we have been able to recoup from these grants over the last couple of years. Yes, and a final portion is included in the abstract. I had included a salary based upon the job description. That is the maximum salary on the state scale for that position. Of course, we would have to take into account the experience that any individual may bring into the organization, as well as how that aligns with the other directors in Orange County Schools.
Bonnie?
Just to clarify, I thought I read in the abstract or somewhere that the funds would come from Title I?
So some of them can. A portion of this position can be funded from the Title I administrative portion. We're allowed to charge 12% of administrative expenditures to Title I. That would come out of the district's pot. That would not impact the funds that are allocated to the schools.
So that funding would not, so it's not like if we don't use it for administration, we can use it for the schools?
No.
Okay.
Sarah?
So just to underscore the point, we do not expect the salary of this position to be what's in the abstract.
No. That was the maximum for
Okay.
that position on the state salary scale.
Okay, because we also want, it's just really out of line, I think, with director level salaries in the district. I don't think I had another question about it. I will say, I looked a little bit just at some other districts to see their positions and where they were and whatever. And I did see like Chatham has an executive director of federal programs, and so does Alamance. They're both executive directors in those districts. I don't know what else they oversee or what other positions exist, but I did see that those were the only two districts that I looked at, and I saw that they did have those positions. So,
Carrie?
Thank you so much for this. I learned a lot in what you all presented and in the abstract. And you noted in here that since we haven't had this position in recent years, the chief academic officer has been doing that work, and then the work has expanded. And so it takes away from the chief academic officer's other jobs. And also noting that I realize that this is about federal grant money, but we also have had our chief academic officer overseeing some other grants. We haven't had the full-time grant support that we've had in the past. I know that came up with some of the robotic grant applications, and I'm sure many others that I'm not familiar with. And so this seems like it would have ripple positive effects for there to be a position focused solely on the federal grant work, so that additional grant writing that the chief academic officer has to oversee isn't pulled in so many directions. Am I correct in that interpretation?
Yes, you are. And I would highlight that we have a temporary terminating contract that you guys did approve with the individual who actually used to be in this position in the district, who is actually assisting the chief academic officer and that team with these job functions at this time.
So could this be a two-pronged job to do the federal funds and do grant writing, since we don't have one in the district?
I will let Joyce answer to that, but I do not see why that would be an issue.
Good evening. To answer your question, we would include the grant writing responsibilities within this job description. So to answer your question, yes, ma'am, we could do it that way.
I will just add that we probably would not be able to, but indirect cost would cover that portion of the salary. We would not be able to charge any of that directly to a federal grant, but indirect cost would cover that.
Okay, thanks. And I appreciate y'all.
Yeah, that's helpful. I mean, just to clarify, if we wanted a grant, it seems like a compliance and grant writing are a little different. But if we, so if we wanted a grant writer, why wouldn't we just we could hire a grant writer. Does any of this money come from local funds, including benefits?
No. The indirect costs are what we have recouped from these federal grants. And as I had incorporated in the abstract, we actually recouped 500,000+ last year. On an average annually, it runs between 80 and 100,000.
So when ESSER goes away, what happens to the
When
fund?
ESSER goes away, we will still have the indirect cost that should be able to fund the position, because we are able to recoup indirect costs from those grants that continue on with us annually, your Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV, and any other federal grants that we may have an opportunity to apply for. We have the ability to recoup a percentage for indirect cost.
Okay, and again, you're saying those funds would not cover grant writing?
Those funds would be able to cover grant writing because they do reside in our restricted budget. It's our other restricted budget.
Our other restricted budget, got it.
Fund 8.
Who does the majority of grant writing now? I mean, obviously we have grants, but where does that fall? Because I really don't know.
Yeah, that's a great question, Mrs. Purcell. It falls on whoever's lap that grant opportunity is there for. So for example, you heard Mr. Aberle speak of a grant that operations will be seeking federal funds to support safety and security. Mr. Aberle and his team will
be the ones writing the grant.
Be the ones to write that grant. But there are other grants out there that we hear about or we don't hear about, and some of the ones that we hear about, we just don't have the capacity to do that grant writing piece. So yeah. There are grants in curriculum and instruction. There are that staff are able to write for, but there are others that we're just not able to.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other comments?
I have one other question, if I could.
Go ahead.
If we don't hire if we don't hire this federal programs person, what do we do with that money? It's like $100,000 a year. What else could that money be used for if it's not used for grant writer?
That's a great question. It could be utilized to support any other expenditures in the district. There's total flexibility with those funds.
And if I can just add, while that is absolutely true, what we don't want to happen is to have any situations where we can't continue to get federal funds. And the oversight of these funds is absolutely critical for all the reasons that Ms. Rath said. I mean, once we get into the audit pike, which can happen if we are not able to monitor and regulate and report out in the ways that we need to around the federal funds, particularly with what's coming per all the ESSA grants and the PRCs and such that we have, we can put ourselves in a position of being very vulnerable, and that's what we don't want. And to include not being able to apply for federal grants going forward, so.
And I'll just add on, thank you, Dr. Felder, that, you know, with the compliance piece, we could be faced with having to return funds, and then it could impact our ability to be able to get future funds.
So I'll just share some thoughts. I'm personally concerned with adding more district staff, especially after we've lost 9 teachers in the district, and especially where we are with our, finances and thinking about, over the last 3 meetings, we've been talking about we need to do something physically, given the challenges of our fund balance and us talking about going back to the commissioners and asking for more money, and then here's this being added. So I'm just going to say I'm not supporting this tonight. Bonnie?
And I'll add that we still don't know what the charter school impact is, what our enrollment's going to look like for the year. We have the day 10, day 20 numbers that we look forward to. So maybe once we have an answer on the commissioners, once we have an answer on what our enrollment looks like, I'd be open to revisit this, but until we have answers on those really big financial questions, I'm with Will.
Sarah?
Yeah, one connection that I'm making here. I'm going to support this position. One connection that I'm making here is I'm thinking about the state Title I review, I believe, that was recently done, where they identified various areas where it was like minutes weren't kept for these meetings, or the level of review there of these programs is very, very intense, and they identified a number of opportunities for us that I think this position, that's exactly the kind of audit I think that this position is supposed to run, that you cannot expect a chief academic officer to run. And so I can understand that need, not just on the grant writing side, which I think is really important, but in the actually having somebody have that like detailed level of oversight of some of those requirements. I don't want to jeopardize our ability to get those funds in the future, so.
All right, with that, this is an action item if the board chooses to proceed.
Mr. Atherton, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I would be remiss as superintendent. I just urge the board to really think about the heavy compliance that we're talking about. This is not, there's a heavy compliance here that if we don't check, this is where we have to dot every I and cross every T. Otherwise, we're opening the district up to be vulnerable and could jeopardize a lot. And so I just need to be clear that we wouldn't be asking for this position if it were not necessary for the district. And yes, it is a district position that's serving the district in a very heavily compliant space. And so I just urge us to please consider that, because once we, if we are not dotting every I and crossing every T, we are going to put the district in a very precarious position, and I wouldn't like to see that happen. So just want to be clear.
Can I add one thing?
Sure.
For the record.
I understand the dotting the i's and the crossing the t's, and that we need to be compliant. But we just talked about the need to possibly ask for more money. And if we could hold off on this until we see that if we need to ask for more money, if we do ask for more money, I think if we take this right now, if we do this right now, put another position in here right now, and then we have to turn and go to the county commissioners and say, we need more money, I'm afraid that if we keep hiring, they're gonna say, no, and not help us. And I think from the dire situation that we looked at on Saturday, as we, in our retreat, we're gonna need some help. And I'm afraid that we're putting ourselves in a bad position with what we might have to do. So is it possible to wait just a little while and see what we have to do and see what we can get and how we're gonna proceed? That's just my take on it. I just don't want us to put ourselves out there to be slapped on the hand and say, no, we're not gonna help you. I don't know, and I'm new, but I do think that it is very important if we could take this position and roll it into a grant writer and a person that's gonna oversee all of this and look at it from that perspective, because we did have a grant writer at one time in Orange County, and it made a difference. Just my thoughts, and I can't not say them.
I was wondering if I could put that in a motion to say, a motion to delay the decision until we have a better idea of whether the commissioners will help with the continuation budget, until we know what our enrollment looks like at the beginning of the year. So it'd be about 2 months, I guess, and let it come back to us then. So that would be my motion, is to delay this for a couple months.
It might not even take a couple of months. It just might.
Could be
I don't
sooner.
know.
You don't even need a motion to do that, but.
Oh, okay, so you don't have to,
Well, it'd
okay.
be proper to make a motion. It's basically a motion to table.
To table it.
And it's ideal to have a specific amount of time or a triggering event. You said 2 months. That would be a proper motion if you wish to make it.
Okay, so that's the motion, to table it for
Table
2.
for 2 months.
For 2 months.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a proper first and second discussion.
Can I just understand from Dr. Felder, or either of you, any potential ramifications of waiting for a couple of months? Is that sort of like, is there anything sort of like high stakes in the next couple of months that needs to rely on?
The only thing that I can speak to is, as we're ending the first grant period, which will end on September the 30th, that the compliance auditing piece of it will start to ramp up in regards to that. All of those federal grants that we received in 2020-21 outside of ESSER 1, there were multiple individual grants for specific initiatives, like devices for teachers and students. There was an EC component. There was a child nutrition component. All of those individual grants, the first ones end on September the 30th of 2022. ESSER 2 ends on September 30th of 2023, and then ESSER 3 will end on September 30th of 2024.
So the auditing will likely start sometime this fall. And so would you?
The auditing will likely be starting somewhere in the early to mid-September timeframe.
And so would you, if you didn't have the person, or even the person in place by that point, probably, would you use temporary terminating contracts and like temporary staff in order to run it from our side, or?
So this is work that not just anyone can do. So it's identifying or trying to identify someone with an expertise. Otherwise, just have to cobble together and do the best that we can, but I'm just making it clear that we will be in a position where, yeah, we need to dot every I and cross every T, and it takes an expertise in federal programs, and yeah, so. It's not the work of Ms. Hatcher or Mrs. Rath. That's not where that work resides, so.
Other discussion? All right, with that, all in favor of the motion?
Tabling.
Of tabling?
Tabling for a month or two.
2 months.
2 months, 2 months specifically. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Jennifer?
Nay.
Okay, so that's 4 for tabling and 3 for against. All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Oh, Ms. Hatcher, don't go too far. I believe you're up next. And so the last item for tonight will be an update on staffing. And leading this update will be Mrs. Joyce Hatcher, our Chief Human Capital Officer.
Good evening, and as always, we save the best for last. So we're going to talk about our staff, and we just want to thank, first of all, let me be formal, Chair Alverton, Vice Chair Purcell, and the board. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to come before you this evening, and I do have a counterpart. He's over here. We're going to have a movie at the end of this presentation, okay? So we did not provide popcorn, but we will bring that next time. I'm going to move, you all saw several slides, but my friend in the corner there is going to start us about at slide 106 and take us to 114, because when I did send this earlier, this is actual data as of today. So when talking about our staffing updates, I want to always work from the framework of our goal 3 as it relates to our exemplary staff, and also focusing on our recruitment and hiring, and also wanting to make certain that we do have an equity focus, and that equity lens is making certain that we have staff members that reflect our student population. So with that said, you have, but no, hold on, let me start over. Before I go there, I want to draw your attention, and I'm gonna be very brief because it's late. Dr. Felder was so nice to send me some reading material this morning, and I think she sent it to the entire cabinet. And you all may have received it as well. But if you didn't, she sent us an article this morning. And the article is very disturbing. And it said this, the article is dated, and this comes from the Washington Post. Never seen it this bad. America faces catastrophic teacher shortages. So it's not just an OCS thing, it is a national thing. But I want to applaud our principals, some of our hiring managers that have already left, because we are not here where this article speaks of. There are rural districts that are switching to 4-day work weeks this fall due to lack of staff. There are districts in Florida who are even asking veterans to teach children, and they have no teaching background whatsoever. And then there are other states that are allowing college students to step in and instruct children. So the teacher shortage in America and in Orange County schools is real, but I do want to say that our staff has done an incredible job of reducing our number of vacancies. They are working extremely hard. I came before you at the special call meeting several Mondays ago, and I'm trying to read this and look at this too, so I'm having a really hard time here because these glasses are not working. But our numbers, we were down, as it relates to our certified staffing, our numbers were down this time. As of today, we had 48 certified vacancies. When I talked to you guys a couple of weeks ago, I think we were at the 54 to 56 range. One of the pieces of information that I did not include, next slide, one of the pieces of information, you can move forward beyond that. One of the pieces of information that I did not include, we included classified staff as well, because they do play an important part in our support of our schools. And we have done a really good job here. Our classified vacancies as of today, we have a total, I'm trying to read my grand total here, and I'm not doing well. We have 12. Make sure my math is right. Actually, it's 13. So we have 13 classified vacancies, and that speaks to the numbers that we heard that support our schools. I did not include the bus driver vacancies in this nor child nutrition, but they are too working very hard, and we are supporting their efforts. So the question that you asked, and this is strictly just an update, what are you all doing? Or as I like to tell Dr. Felder, what have y'all done lately? So this is what we're doing, we'll continue to do. We will continue to have our sign-on bonuses that have been very helpful with our nurses, our CTE staff, our math, those hard to fill areas, Mr. Arrington, that we finally got that corrected on that post on our website. We have new hire referrals. Ms. Smiley asked me about this, but I was remiss to remember that our principals are using the approach from the shampoo commercial many years ago. You tell two friends, and you tell two friends, and they tell two friends. So what happens is when they're interviewing, they're saying, do you have a friend that wants to come here and work in Orange County schools? And we've been very fortunate, and they have said yes, and that's how we have brought folk in, by word of mouth. We are very appreciative of the supplement bonus that you all provided to our certified staff, to allow staff to come here, and those staff who have experience on their North Carolina teaching license, which makes us licensed professionals in this era, in this field, to be able to give them credit for what they have, the hard work they're doing. We will continue our HBCU recruitment efforts. I'm already getting those job fair efforts ready, getting schools ready getting that recruitment schedule ready, and we'll be providing that in a board update. And then just retention efforts, continuing to talk to our staff. We're doing some things, we have a program coming out called Bounce Back, where we're looking at the social emotional, because whether we realize it or not, everyone needs a break, and there needs to be a work-life balance. So we're looking at that. And then we're also partnering with educational organizations. I want to talk about our substitutes. At one point have been a very pivotal role in the help to bridge that gap when we didn't have a teacher, but that too is becoming a little short. When I gave this update 2 weeks ago, we have a total of 99 last school year. I think the last meeting we had 65 of those 99 who have committed to come back. We are up. We now have, as of today, 75 who said they are coming back. So we are calling everyone and everybody. If you know someone that wants to come and work, Mr. Andre, you said you drive a bus. You also may need to be a teacher assistant, so we can call and talk about that later. But we are also, Ms. Smiley, I heard you last meeting and you said, okay, we need a presence. So I am so fortunate to have my colleague here, and here comes the movie. We're going to share with you all what we have done as a result of making sure that when people log on to our website, when you're looking for a job, you want to see accurate information about the organization. You want to see what the organization is doing. So thanks to my colleague here, we do now have a LinkedIn presence, and I would encourage you, if you do not tweet, because he's going to teach us all how to do that, and no, it's not a dance, but he's going to teach us all how to tweet, and I would just encourage you to talk about and say something good about Orange County schools. We also do have Facebook's presence, but Kevin is going to come in right now. We're going to do a little demo, and we don't need a RFP, and it's free. So I'm going to turn it over to Kevin right now, and he's going to talk about the things that he has helped human capital in our district do.
Thank you, Mrs. Hatcher, and thank you, members of the board. I'm not here to teach you anything because, as you all know, I've been watching you for a while, and you all are generally far, far ahead of us. But Mrs. Hatcher, thank you for making some space for us to talk about kind of the technical side. I'm going to preface what I'm going to say with knowing it's beyond late. Everything that we're going to share in terms of the technical aspect of this really does pale by comparison to finding and speaking with, engaging, and then amplifying a happy, satisfied, passionate teacher in Orange County schools. Now, you know that from your own experience, but I'm going to end what I'm sharing with you tonight with a conversation that I just had here in our schools in the past week. Ryan, if you'll click on the careers website link for us, we were asked to go ahead and update and bring up to speed the careers homepage, which is a really important space on our website. This is the place that people come when they are doing search, right? Our native search on the internet is the most important thing that we can share beyond word of mouth. And so if people are looking for, why would I want to work in Orange County schools? Why would I want to come here? We've updated the page to reflect the kinds of things that teachers, we hope, are looking for, and especially the kind of people who want to work with our current teachers. That's the number one reason people want to come to work here, is because they heard about it from someone who is happy. If you'll slide down the page, Ryan, you'll see that we have job openings, we have pictures of our students and our teachers hard at work. I cannot say enough good things about Amanda Bunch. I work on her team. That's the way I'm going to describe it to you. And she has done an amazing job collecting a portfolio of photos, videos, testimonials, the kinds of things that really put Orange County schools out in front. We're sharing information about beginning teacher support, which you all have supported with bringing on someone like Rhonda Wood, and the number of different ways that we support new teachers, veteran teachers, folks who are beginning their board certification journey or who are renewing. There's so many aspects. I sat down for a generous 90-minute meeting with Mrs. Hatcher, Mrs. Rath, and Dr. Felder, and we came up with about 2 different pages of things that this board has done to make it more attractive to teach in Orange County schools. It's taking us a while to unpack all of that for the public. The careers website is the first place where we're doing that. Why would you want to come here? And then where will you go next? What you can't see is that there are links all over this page going to information about what you've shared, as well as tracking links so that we can see, are we having any effect? Ryan, if you go to the next link from the slide, which is our LinkedIn page, really excited to revitalize this resource. Orange County Schools has had a presence on LinkedIn, which is the premier place for people to go when they are looking for jobs and when they are connecting with people who have jobs, right? What's the best way people find a job? Through a first or second degree connection and someone who is happy. For instance, just yesterday, one of our newest employees was out exclaiming on LinkedIn, "I just started my job at Orange County Schools." Case in point. It's exactly what we want to see happening, and we're happy to share and amplify that. Ryan, let's go to the next link, please. Facebook, as everyone knows, is our juggernaut. This is where many, many family, friends, teachers, and our extended network are following us. This is not a teacher recruitment post, a classic teacher recruitment post, but how many of you know that custodian, that facilities manager that we just saw posted there, right? Yep. Mr. McAdoo is a perfect shining example of why we do what we do. And I don't just mean in communications, I mean all of us. Mr. McAdoo took the time to talk with me when I visited Pathways Elementary School. And he's not even the example that I'm going to bring up later. 29 years he's been on the job. And he is just as proud in his 30th year as I'm sure he was in his first. And the way he took pride in what he was doing and letting me take his picture and talking to me about the way the school runs. And it never occurred to me that hundreds, if not thousands of people were going to come back to us and tell us what we should have already known, that he had changed their lives. That's what it means to work in a school, to work in public education, to work in Orange County schools. So is this a teacher recruitment post? I don't know, you tell me, right? But it's wonderful to see this kind of effect happening. And Ryan, let's go ahead and move to Twitter for the last one. So we've developed a series of graphics, and within those graphics, as Mrs. Hatcher mentioned, one of the things that we've done is add in things like testimonials from our staffers. And if you'll slide down the page just a little bit, I want to make sure that the QR code
shows up there. Thank you, Mr. Atherton, for referencing that one of the easiest ways for us to engage people in this work as they're walking by, they might just see it or see the visual trigger. Oh, this is something that's meant for me. I should probably check this out. So we're using that in a lot of different places. And you might think, well, I don't know, is it going to do anything? Yeah, it's going to do something. If you'll move to the next slide for us, Ryan, back in the presentation, we've put that tracking link everywhere. bit.ly/work for OCS, capital W, little f, capital OCS, has been getting some hits. Okay, and the good news is that clicks will eventually translate into applicants, which will eventually translate into employees. And if they're as happy as the people I've been talking with, then we're going to be very happy indeed down the line. The person that I just talked with this week is named Deidre Lee, and she told me that I could share her story. She's been teaching for over 20 years, and she teaches right now. Her primary location is at Central Elementary School, but she spent the summer at Grady A. Brown and really generously gave of her time to talk with Amanda Bunch, and she made a video celebrating her students who were doing a great job. And at the end of camp, she and her colleagues, both in the educational staff as well as the custodial facilities maintenance staff, they were all very happy that they had done a good job. And I asked her, I was like, so what's it like? She said, well, I've been here 4 years now, but what makes this place special is I got to show what I know and do the kind of job that I'm really going to love. And so she has just finished her first year as a literacy coach. She's going into her second year. And she said, I have to tell you that change in the local supplement made the biggest difference to me. So this is someone who's passionate about teaching. She's a career educator, and she came here to continue her journey and has found both fulfillment and the reward, knowing that she's part of a community that's fully engaged in supporting her, and that she can move freely. She was at Grady A. Brown. She teaches at Central. She was with people from all around the district. It was the most ecumenical moment I've seen, going to our camps to see how so many people were working shoulder to shoulder, knowing that in days they were going to go back to their home locations. We're surrounded by hundreds of examples like Deidre Lee. And we're really excited about the opportunity to kind of promote that, get it out there as quickly as two staffers can. Man and I we're going to be hiring an administrative assistant. So for those of you out there who want to support this mission, do know that we're hiring. But thank you, Mrs. Hatcher, for raising. We have a lot of departments to serve. We have to support operations. We have to support child nutrition. We have to support human capital. We have to support the educators in our district. But thank you for raising the awareness. And as Ms. Hatcher aptly said, please keep tweeting out our job opening posts and let your friends and family know. And if you have any questions, you know where to find me, but also we're happy to take them.
Any questions?
Do we get to see the video? I want to see the video.
It's really no video.
Darn it.
I was the movie. I'm really sorry. Ms. Hatcher got you excited.
Yeah, I was the last, person, so I had to make sure y'all didn't go to sleep. So, yes, ma'am.
A couple of silly questions. First of all, I want to thank you, because when I looked at I'm a data person, I looked at the data, really impressive shift over the last 2 months, so thank you for that work. The photos on the website are terrific. They're so good, I thought they were stock photos. So if they're real people, I wonder if we should caption them.
We should probably have lots of things like alt text and captions and other things like that. So we can definitely.
I don't want to make it busy, but it's kind of interesting that says, hey, here's what it looks like at Orange Middle School or whatever, it's, so people know that's really us. It's not.
You are right. These really are us.
This is us.
Sarah?
This has been really impressive progress, both on the hiring side. I mean, obviously, we need to get every single one of those positions filled, but it's been really good progress so far, really great progress on the website and the presence out there, and especially really love this focus on telling our stories, because that's totally right. That's what's going to draw people in. I just have been having this thought as I have been looking at our openings and then going on to some other school districts' websites, and I'm like, oh gosh, this school district has this many teaching openings and this one has this many, and they're all hiring. Ms. Hatcher, you mentioned retention, and like our principals have to be really keyed in on retaining their staff in these early weeks of school. Last year, we did lose some people in those early weeks of school because everyone is still hiring right now. And so it is, we're going to keep hiring, and so are they. So just hope that that's on the minds of our principals.
I will say, I'm not going to really speak for them, but I can speak for them. It is. I will say too, regarding the retention piece, one of the things we did do, this is why it's so important to get contracts out early. We got contracts out early, so now if a person says they do find a job, they sign that contract before they went home for the summer. So they do have to give us a 30-day notice. So that is something that we got, that's the reason why we got those contracts out really, really early. But our principals are really, really working really hard. I cannot accept the credit for this work. I do not do this work by myself. It is a collaboration. My team works really, really hard. We found out in leadership in the retreat, there is no I in team, but yet there is. But my team works extremely hard, and they are constantly calling, turning over rocks. I mean, just trying to get these positions filled and just assisting our principals. So if my human capital team is not asleep yet, I just want to thank them for what they do every day. Are there any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I have one more. We have on the list, and I really appreciate the school level detail, there's a couple of schools that have a lot more openings than others, and I was curious, how does that affect the start of school for those particular schools, and do we have to take special measures to put people in place there?
I'm smiling because Dr. Felder always has a plan. And she has a team here. We have a bench, and our bench, every person on this bench, with the exception of me, and Ms. Ralph have a teaching license, but we do have to support the schools. We'll be getting our assignments this week as to how we will go out to support the schools. We met today to look at another avenue, particularly in some schools where we're having difficult filling the positions. There is just no one there. So we did meet, and there was a meeting called today, met with Dr. Green and my friend here, and your name skips me, and I know your name. Ryan, thank you, Ryan, to look at some digital work so way we can do some digital support to schools. So this is on our radar. I will say this, I want to remind you all, we do have some new board members, but one of the things that Orange County School has not done historically, and this is what I was told now, so I want to hear, so I'm gonna put it out there like that. This is what I was told, that we normally do not start a school year fully staffed, so that is something that we are trying to really, really work on going forward. And some of the positions that we do have are sometimes can be carryover positions. But our principals are working really hard. We're looking at supporting schools who may not have may not have staff, and we will be out there working. I do not have a teaching license, but I can monitor a classroom, I can cover a lunch, I can do car duty. There are things that we're gonna do as a cabinet to help support the schools.
All right, anything else?
Just thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
And it takes a village.
It does.
So just a couple items for me. So I do highly recommend the video club from Cedar Ridge High School. They have in the past done work for the board and producing, and they are world-class for sure. And I think that would just emphasize more about our schools and our students and those abilities. The other one is staff referrals. And I think it's reasonable for us to consider doing some kind of financial incentive. I've heard that that is a way that we could get additional. So I would be open to hearing a proposal at some point if that would help as well.
Mr. Iverson, number one, to your first question, we do have and we have utilized the services of the Cedar Ridge Video department. They have done, and we do have a video draft that I am now working with Kevin on. So we do have a video, but we want to just kind of tweak that a little bit more. But they have been very helpful, and I think it was really good to have our own staff help us with that initiative. The other thing regarding the staff referral bonuses, I do know we have a referral bonus for bus drivers, but I would want to add, and I'm not saying that no staff member is more important than the other, but we want all exemplary staff. So I would just ask, if we are asking for a proposal, is this something that can be looked at as well as for classified staff as well as for certified staff?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And mainly I was talking about the videography for Kevin, because I know that he's a staff of two.
Yeah, but I have the video, Mr. Atherton.
That's awesome. The last question I had is, what is the amount for the science bonus for science teachers?
Ms. Raff, help me out. Is it, they were not, that particular group was not included. I'm going on, and I think that referral retention bonus structure was introduced my first board meeting. And science was not identified as an hard to fill. So if there is an area that we would need to look at, we would have to go back, and Ms. Raff and I and Dr. Felder would have to look at that.
Okay, because I had sent that email and I haven't heard back on it, and the text says science, and it wasn't listed in the table, so.
I'm gonna let Kevin.
I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. So we were following up on some narrative discussion, and in talking with other staff, we learned that there were a couple of different subject areas there that have been talked about in the past, and may have been floated. I think languages were one, science is another, but when they didn't land in the bucket, then they didn't make it into the chart. And so that was an error in editing. No, it's totally fine. It's a legitimate question because that went out. And so this is a good place to remind everyone that we're going to have a slightly different publication schedule. So the Board Matters is going to be posted on the web as opposed to being sent out by email, and is also going to be included in a new newsletter format that comes out most weeks, over 20 times during the school year. So anyway, be on the lookout for that. We do appreciate what you all are doing to support all the different things that are going on. But thanks for asking the question about that.
Excellent. Really?
It's late.
Exactly.
It's really Andre's. I'm surprised Andre hasn't kicked in on his volunteer idea.
So with that, this is the
I'll leave
last
it.
agenda item. Is there any other discussion, Dr. Felder?
No.
With that, Board, do we have a motion?
So moved.
That was a motion to
motion.
adjourn.
Thank you.
All in favor? Aye. Dr. Moore? All right, thanks, everybody. Call the meeting adjourned.
I moved.